So there used to be a minig. Maybe by some they still have the minig. That Shabbos, you eat kugel. Everyone eats kugel Shabbos, but there's more to it. If it was a special Shabbos, what means a special Shabbos? Special Shabbos means where you have two Sifrei Torah, because you have two Kriyas. Like it's Shabbos, Rish Chodesh, let's say. So if you take out two Sifrei Torah, the meaning was, you have, for Shabbos, two Kugelach. Now if it was a really extra special Shabbos, what means an extra special Shabbos? 3 Sifrei Torah. Like if it's Shabbos, and it's Rosh Chodesh Tevis, and it's Chanukah, that's one of the times. You could get 3 Sifrei Torah on a Shabbos. So then it was so special, you would eat 3 Kugelach. 3 Sifrei Torah, 3 Kugelach. So the question always was, it was always a chakira, if this is a good minig or it's not a good minig. And the answer, like most things in Judaism, is as savenzach. It depends. It entirely depends. Depends on what? Well, if you sit down at Suda Shabbos and they serve kugel, and you look at the kugel on the table and you say, ah, Torah, that's a beautiful minig. If, however, you stand up in shul as they open the Orei and they bring out the Sefer Torah, and you look at the Sefer Torah and you say, ah, kugel, then that is not a nice minig. When Rivka, after so many years, finally is pregnant, and she doesn't know that she has twins, and she goes to Shem Ve'ever, to the Beis Medrash, and she asks, why is she in such pain? And they explain it to her, that you don't have one child, you have 2 children, you have Yankiv and you have Esav, and they're not 2 children, they're 2 nations, they're 2 civilizations. The Jewish people and Western civilization, Rome, Edom. And they're fighting, like Rashi says, they're fighting over 2 worlds. A very simple question. If Yankov Avinu is the Yeshiv, Oyel, the Ishtam, and he's into Ruchnias, so obviously his interest is in Elam Haba. And if Esav is the Magusham, is the Ish Sadeh, then his interest will be in Elam Hazeh. So then I don't get what the problem is. Let Yankov Avinu have the Ruchnias, and Esav Arosha will have the Gashmias. You take Elam Haba, you take Elam Hazeh, and Shalom Al Yisrael. But obviously, there's something more to it, because they were fighting. Why were they fighting? Because it's not that Yankiv wants Ruchnias and Esav wants Gashmias. It's that they both want both. Okay, so now we have a new question. If they both want both, what's the difference between them? If they both want the same thing, they both want Elam Hazeh and Elam Haba, Gashmias and Ruchnias. So how could you say they're different now? Not only different, but opposite. So what's the difference? The difference is, when you sit down at the Shabbos Suda and you see kugel, do you say Torah? Or when you stand up and they open the order and they bring out a Torah, do you say kugel? Which is Iker and which is Tafel? Gashmias or Ruchnias?
Gashmias.
Is the Iker. Is the Iker. And it depends where you come into the circle, because ein kamach, ein Torah, ein kamach, and it's a cycle.
They want the Torah. The Notrim want the Torah because over there it says they get a chelik.
Avelam haba.
No, the one's there. They get haseyah. That's why they wanted the Torah. They don't care if they didn't take the Torah or have the Torah or not. They know that the Torah should exist. The Muslims don't want us to have the Torah. Because over there it says they just get gifts.
The Bnei Yishmael is another story altogether. Bnei Yishmael is another story altogether. Bnei Yishmael wants ruchnias. They don't want gashmias. They like ruchnias. In fact, they never got over the fact that Yitzchak Avinu was Avram's successor, his Malay Mokim. And to this day, they see themselves, Bnei Yishmael, as, you think about it, when the three Malachim came to visit, so who was it who helped with the Hachnosas Orchim? Was Yishmael. So Yishmael was raised in this, and everyone knows the Bnei Yishmael are very big Balei Chesed, very into Chesed. Problem is that Chesed is also hispashtus, like we say L'cha Hashem Hagdula V'Agvura. Chesed is also called Gdula because it's hispashtus. So they're very into hospitality, mamish like Rosh Hashanah Eishel, Chila Shtia Levia Ad Hayim, very into it. But it also comes with the flip side of Chesed, because it's Chesed Ulamazeh. So the flip side of Chesed is, I'm going to give you, but you better not say no. Yeah, I'm going to give it to you, and you're going to like it. It's on my terms. It's called expansionism. It's called world domination. But they're very much into ruchnias, and they see themselves as those who are going to bring morality and monotheism and tznius to the world.
When they got Ramadan's coming up by then.
Ich weiß nicht. Don't ask me these. Now you're above my pay grade. But the point is that Esav is not into ruchnias in and of itself. Esav is into gashmias, but if you know how the world works, you have to figure out how to have some ruchnias, because you trade the ruchnias with the Eibishter for the gashmias. The Rebbe Marash had a Rebbetzin Rivka, and she was not well, and the doctor prescribed medicine. So he told her two things. You have to have the medicine first thing in the morning, and you have to have it on a full stomach. She didn't want to do that because first thing in the morning, she wanted to daven. She didn't want to eat before davening. Steht in Shulchan Aruch, you're not allowed. So she came up with a kunz. She had a trick. She's going to get up much earlier than she normally gets up. She's going to daven first. And then, at the time when she would normally be getting up, she'll already be after davening. She'll eat something and take her medicine. And then it's as if she took the medicine first thing in the morning, because it's the time that used to be first thing in the morning, even though she was really getting up much earlier. And her shver, the Tzemach Tzedek, found out what she was doing and told her this is not good. And he told her like this. He said, "As a besser essen fahren davnen, wie davnen fahren essen," which has a double meaning. Far means chronologically, to do one thing first, but also tzulib, for the sake of. One worldview is, yeah, of course I need gashmias, for the sake of ruchnias. That's essen fahren davnen. That's the Jewish worldview. The other worldview is Esav. Of course I need ruchnias. I trade that in with the Eibishter for the stuff I like. What do I got to do for you? The Eibishter likes mitzvahs, I'll give him some mitzvahs, and he should give me a 10-speed bike or whatever it is that I like. But the point is that by Yidden, the fight, the struggle, the clash of civilizations that's been going on since Yaakov and Esav is about how Elam Hazeh gets used. That's the whole fight. how does Elam Hazeh, how does Gashmias get used? What's the proper use of Gashmias? What's the proper role of Gashmias? See, we can't, as Yidden, renounce the physical world. We learned that early in our history. In the Midbar already, we had people who wanted to just be spiritual. They were the Meraglim. And they said that the land is Eichla Yeshvel, that it devours those who settle in it. And they preferred to have a totally spiritual Yiddishkeit. And Moshe Rabbeinu told them that they're dead wrong, they missed the boat. That it has to be mitzvahs ma'asiyos dafke. You can't just be spiritual. So by Yidden, the whole struggle is, and our whole mission in the world is to introduce the idea of a healthy relationship with Gashmias. Okay, what does this have to do with Lag B'Omer? The Gemara, Shabbos, Dav Lamed Gimel, Omer Beis, which Beshkocha Pratis, Rabbi Shimon's Yom Simchosei Shel Rashbi is Lag B'Omer, it's the 33rd of the Omer. And the Maaseh of Rabbi Shimon is Shabbos Daf Lamed Gimel. It's on the 33rd page. And in fact, for those who count, I didn't count it myself, but it's the 33rd time in Shas that Rabbi Shimon's name is mentioned. So the Maaseh is like this. The Gemara starts and asks like this. First of all, it says, why was Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi called Rosh Medabrim B'chol Mokeh? He was always the first speaker. The Romans instituted that whenever the Yidden would have a gathering, Rabbi Yehuda had to speak first. By the way, there's a cute vort about that. In the Haggadah, when we say the Makos, and after we say the Dom Tzvardei Akinim, so then we say the Rosh Tevis. Datzach, right. Rabbi Yehuda Haya Noisin Lohem Simonim. The Rabbi Yehuda, he synopsized them into Rosh Tevis. So the vort is, why was Rabbi Yehuda Rosh Medabrim B'chol Mokim? Why would they always be mechabed him to speak? Because he knew the first rule of a good speech is condense, right? He put it into Rosh Tevis, like the old vort. That the three most important parts of a sermon, or the three most important features of a sermon. First one is you have to have a good opening. Second is you have to have a good closing. And the third thing is those two should be as close together as possible. So Rabbi Yehuda was Rosh Medabrim. He was the head speaker. But why was he the head speaker? The real reason, the Gemara explains, is because there was one time Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yasi, and Rabbi Shimon were sitting together and they were discussing current events. And Rabbi Yehuda said, Kamanoyim Maisei Umazu. How pleasant are the deeds of this nation, referring to the ruling nation, referring to Rome. So Rabbi Yasi didn't say anything. He just he pleaded the fifth. And Rabbi Shimon said, what are you talking about? Rabbi Yehuda had given examples that they make marketplaces and they make bridges and they make bathhouses. So Rabbi Shimon says to him, what are you talking about? All of these things they only do for themselves. The marketplaces, they put zaynos there, and the bridges is to charge tolls, and the bathhouses is for their own pleasure. So you're saying that they're building civilization? They're not building civilization. They're doing what's good for them. At any rate, the story proceeds with, there was a fourth person present, Rabbi Yehuda ben Gadim, and he let the cat out of the bag. He started telling the story, and somebody, it was a WhatsApp forward, and then, before you know it, you don't even know where it came from, and the whole olam knows it by that afternoon. And then everybody knew, and then by that time the Malchus found out that Rabbi Shimon was talking about them. There's a question about this conversation. It's not my question. Marashah asks this question. Marashah asks, this dialogue, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon Be'ikar, that part, I mean, Rabbi Yossi didn't have much, he didn't really take part in the dialogue. It says that he shosok, he didn't speak. By the way, you know about, there was a little boy, and he came home from school, and he told his mother that he's in the school play. And she says, what part are you playing? He says, I'm playing a Jewish father. She says, no, go back to your teacher and tell her you want a speaking part. So Rabbi Yossi was the non-speaking part. At any rate, so this conversation between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, Kamanoi, Maisei, Umazu, that they make marketplaces and bridges and bathhouses. This is in the very beginning of Masechta Avodah Zarah. This is Mamish talks about in the Gemara on the Yom Hadin Agadol, when the Eibishter is judging Rome. It says he judges all the nations, but he starts with Rome and asks why he starts with Rome, and there's an answer to that why he starts with Rome, Dafka. But at any rate, the Eibishter is judging all the nations. This is the end of history, and pencils down, hand in your tests, and the Eibishter is seeing how the different nations did. And he starts with Rome, and he gives them their din v'cheshbon, and he says, you guys are no good. And they say, hold on a second. Look what we did. Look what we built. We built this. Look what we built. And they say all these things. We built the bridges and the marketplaces. And why did we do it? They say, so the Jews would be free to learn Torah. And the Eibishter says, who do you think you're fooling? You did it for yourself. Get out of here. So the Marashah asks this question. This is the conversation that the Eibishter has with Rome on the Yom Hadin Agadol. Rabbi Yehuda says different? No, the Marashah says, of course, Rabbi Yehuda is made that that's how the conversation is going to go down. Rather, he was making a political choice. This is what the Marashah says. He made a political choice that he said half the story. Half the story is Kaman Noyim Maisei Umazu. The stuff they do, the actions, if you just look at the accomplishment of it and you totally ignore the self-serving motive, okay, so they accomplish a lot. They do, they get a lot done. And it's true, if you look at Rome, which, by the way, in that Gemara, in Avodah Zarah, you know what it says? One of the reasons, see, first Rome is judged, and then Persia. And it says one of the reasons why Rome and Persia, it says because these two kingdoms exist until Mashiach comes. By the way, I was talking to a professor recently. He told me Rome never fell. It just changed. I mean, Al Pi Kabbalah, Rome never fell also. Edom is still alive. Edom is Western civilization. Europe and now America. Western civilization. And if you look at what Western civilization has accomplished as far as technology and transportation and architecture and building and medicine and all the accomplishments within Elam Hazeh, within Gashmias. If you just look at it by itself, it is very impressive what Western civilization has built. By the way, Maimer Muskar, but I think it's interesting when we lump ourselves together with Western civilization. You know the expression, the terrorists are winning? When we lump ourselves together with Western civilization, the terrorists are winning. When the Bnei Yishmael provoke us so much that we think that our salvation is with Edom, with Western civilization, not that we have anything against them, but they are Esav. And we do have to struggle to overcome them. Not the way Bnei Yishmael want to struggle to overcome. They want to get rid of them. That's ridiculous. You don't get rid of them. I'll explain in a second what you do with them. You don't hurt them. God forbid. There's a use. Hold on a second. We are not Western civilization. We never have been. To the contrary, we're on a seesaw. And when Western civilization goes up, we go down. When we go up, they go down. As far as in power. Let me explain what that means. By the way, you know that in Shanghai, there was a Japanese governor, because the Japanese were administering Manchuria at the time, and he was getting pressure from the Nazis to round up the Jews and send them back. So they had a meeting with Dam Shenover, and he was the representative of the Yidden, and it was done through a translator, a Metorgaman. And the Japanese governor opens up the meeting, and the first thing he asks, ask him, meaning ask Dam Shenover, why the Germans hate you so much, meaning hate the Yidden. And Dam Shenover told the translator, Zostem Zogen, you should tell the Japanese governor, weil wir seinen Orientalen, because we're Orientals. And that was the end of the meeting, and you see the Japanese governor found something else to do. We're not from Western civilization. Yankov and Esav are two different civilizations. And what's our relationship with them? Very simple. The Medrash says a mashal. The mashal is like this: that there was once a man who was away at a war, in a battle, and he was dying in this battlefield. And he got back to camp, and he knew he's not going to make it home. And the only one he had with him was his Eved Rasha. And he says, this wise man says to the Eved Rasha, I want you to inherit me. Everything I own is yours. And I'm writing you a shtar. I'm writing a contract, and you should bring it to Bezdin. There should be Mekayim the shtar. And he writes that out. I'm giving everything to my Eved. He says, but listen, one thing. I have a son. I love my son. He should pick one thing from my nechasim. One thing. But everything else goes to you. So the Eved was only too happy to bring this shtar back home and bring it to Bezdin. Comes to the Bezdin, and they look it over, looks kosher, they call in the son. The son starts crying. Why is it that his father gave away everything to this Eved? He gave him only one thing. What's he going to pick? What thing should he pick? You know, the condo in Florida. Huh? Oh, you guys know the story. No, you just, you're the shakab. You figured it out. That's what you would do. But in the mashal, he didn't figure that out. In the mashal, it says there was chochem echad. There was a wise person there who showed up, and he took the son aside and he said, "Hey, boychik, listen, don't be sad. Your father was a very wise man. He knew this Eved's going to rip him off. If he would not write this contract in this way, the Eved's going to come back and make up all types of stories. He did the one thing that was going to secure the delivery of your inheritance. He made the Eved feel that he was getting it, and that way he was only too happy to make sure that the contract should be verified in Bezdin. And now all you have to do is, okay, you guys already said the punchline, all you have to do is choose the Eved, and everything that the Eved owns, you own. Okay. So that's a mashal. That never happened. That's a mashal. Medrash says, what's the nimshal? That be'emes, everything that Edom, that Western civilization accomplishes, all of their breakthroughs in Gashmias, in technology, innovation, invention. Really, when Mashiach comes, we're going to see why it was there. It was all the teretz that they gave in the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, that we did it so Yidden would be free to learn Torah. It was baloney when they said it. But in reality, that is what it's going to be. It is really for the sake that the world should be an easier place to live, and that even b'derech hatava, that Yidden should be able to sit and learn Torah And the world should basically run itself, and everyone should be fed, and everyone should be safe, and everything should, run smoothly because of all this stuff that Western civilization was able to innovate. But if they knew that the whole purpose of thousands of years of building and innovation was ultimately, if they knew all along, eventually they're going to know, but if they knew all along that they were building this for the sake of Torah and mitzvahs, they would not be very motivated, and they wouldn't have done any of the stuff that they did. So they had to think, like the Avid who thought that he's going to inherit, they had to think it was for themselves, but in the end, everything that they create is really for the sake of Torah and mitzvahs. So this is the deeper conversation. The deeper conversation of Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda is our relationship with Western civilization, which is also our relationship with Gashmias and Elam Hazeh. It's all one thing. It's all one concept. As Yidden, we cannot go sit on a mountaintop and meditate and be miyachid yichudim and be totally spiritual. For that, the neshama didn't have to come lamata into a body. And with that, the Eibishter is never going to get his dira b'tachtoinim, is never going to have a dwelling place in this world. No, the only reason the neshama came down here, and the only way the Eibishter is going to get what he wants, his taiva, which is a dira lo yisbarach b'tachtoinim, is through Gashmias. It's unavoidable. So really, the perspective of Torah, Torah was given in Chodesh HaShlishi. The Gemara in Shabbos talks about all the different shlishis. That the Torah is a threefold Torah, Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim. It was given to a threefold nation of Yisrael, Levi, Kohen, and it was given on the third day of Agbalah through a third born child, Moshe Rabbeinu, who had two older siblings, and many other threes. And it was given in the third month. What's the idea of the third month? That is the third month. What's the idea of the third month? Shlishi is not just a number. Shlishi is a concept. Rishon is a concept. Sheni is a concept. Shlishi is a concept. Conceptually, Rishon, Sheni, and Shlishi, if you want to talk philosophically, is thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Thesis means a thesis statement. A, this is what it is. Antithesis is the antithesis, an opposite statement, a contradictory statement. B. Synthesis is a truth that's big enough to combine A and B and not be mavato or even mitigate either one of them. That's C. What's an example of this? We say every day in the Braisa of Rabbi Yishmael before davening, Shnei chasuv machrishim zeh zeh ad sheyaveh kosav hashlishi v'achnei b'nei. So you have Shnei chasuv machrishim zeh zeh. This is A and B, and you cannot resolve them because they seem to be bestira. They seem to be a contradiction. In reality, they're not a contradiction, they're a paradox. A paradox, by the way, technically is a seeming contradiction, something that seems unresolvable, but on further contemplation we see that it can be resolved. By the way, when one PhD marries another PhD, you know what you got? A paradox. I didn't write that joke, don't worry. Okay. So you have A and B, and they can't both be true. They can't possibly both be true. Let's say somebody, he's never been to New York, and he asks you, what's the weather like in New York? And you tell him, well, I'll tell you, we have the air conditioning running during the Farbrengen because it's hot and muggy. And then another guy, he says, no, New York, it's bitter cold. It's freezing. How could they both be right? You know the story about the husband and the wife who came to the Rav? They had tainas on each other. So the husband said his whole story. And the rabbi says, you're right. The wife says, hold on, I have my version. Okay, Zog. She says her version. He says, you're right. The rabbi's own Rebbitzin's walking by, and she pokes her head in, and she says, how can they both be right? That's not possible. He looks at her and says, you're right. Torah is Chedesh HaShlishi, is the Indian of Shlishi. That A and B are bestira, they are contradicting each other, and they seem to be irresolvable, but when you stand from a higher perspective, they both make sense. So how could one guy say that New York is hot and muggy? Another guy says that New York is bitter cold. And then a third guy comes in and says, Chavi, let me explain something to you. It's called seasons, okay? You visited New York in July. You visited New York in January. And it's in a temperate zone, and the seasons, the weather changes throughout the year. Wow! What do you know? They were both true, and I didn't have to make either of them less true. See, when you have Shnei Chesuvim Machishim Zazat Sheyava Kosev HaShlishi, the Kosev HaShlishi always has to be a higher truth than either of the two contradictory statements. That's how it resolves the two contradictory statements. It's like standing on a mountain and seeing the big picture. So a person who's standing down on the ground, one person says, I'm standing here and I see that there's a forest. And the other person says, no, I see houses. It's a city. And then you go up to the top of the mountain, you look down, and you say, well, hold on a second. There's one valley, and in one part of the valley is the forest, and the other part of the valley is the city. It's not a contradiction. That's the union of Tiferes. Tiferes doesn't mean you take a little chesed, and you take a little gvura, and you mix them together, and you get lukewarm water. Mix them together, and hot water, cold water, and then lukewarm water. That's not what Tiferes is. Tiferes is, the Kava Mtsoi is Eila al Kulona. The middle track always is higher. And it's higher because it can retain, Chesed can remain Chesed in its full glory. And Gvura remains Gvura. And doesn't have to be any less Gvura. And you put them together and they can both beat, they can, harmony, Tiferes harmony is that two opposites are not contradicting each other, they're not lessening each other, they're not diluting each other, because there's room for all of it. There's space, there's room, but that's only from a higher perspective. Torah is the higher perspective. So, in terms of A, B, C, synthesis, antithesis, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, Rishon, Sheni, and Shlishi of Torah, Be'ikar, what is the thesis, what is the antithesis, and what is the synthesis? Nisan is Meloshen Nisim. And the whole Tnuah of Chedesh Nisan is Milmaila Lamata. And that's why it's also called Chedesh HaAviv, which is Aleph base, from the top to the bottom. Everything is Milmaila Lamata, Ruchnias. Chedesh Iyar is the opposite. Here is Be'ikar Bir V'Tikun Amidais. In Mazolos, it's Mazel Shoyer. Like Shlomo Melech says, that Avkoyach B'Tvu Shoyer. That there's a lot of yield from the strength of an axe. The Nefesh Bamis gets involved. That's also the pasuk from Shir HaShirim. Mashcheni acharecha nurotza v'yanim melech hadorav. Mashcheni, pull me. That's Nisan. Schlep me out of Mem Tesh Shari Tuma because I can't get out on my own. The Eibishter does all the work. Milamayla lamata. Second phase, acharecha nurotza. We will run after you. So now it's we, because the Nefesh Bamis is involved, and it's also nurotza. I'm going faster because now I have the Nefesh Bamis as my engine. And that's milmata lamayla. And that's why every day of year is Sfira, and you're cleaning up and polishing another aspect of the Nefesh Bamis, one at a time. And then comes Chedesh HaShlishi, and you ask the question, so hold on a second, which is the main thing? Below to above, above to below? And the answer is yes. Is it Ruchnius or is it Gashmius? Yes. It's like there's a Hayem Yem that says that there are three different perspectives within Torah. There are three different approaches to Torah, to Yiddishkeit. There may be more, but these are three general categories. One says that you have to realize the relative worthlessness of Gashmias. That all the Tainugei Elam Hazeh are temporal, they're fleeting, they don't last. You have to realize they're not really the relative lack of worth of Gashmias. And it says that's called Teres HaMusar. Then there's another perspective. And that is you have to realize the preciousness of Ruchnius, of the Tzura over the Chomer. That spirituality is more precious than physicality. And that's called Chakira. And then there's another perspective that says that one Eibishter, Hashem Echad, made Tzura and Chomer, made Ruchnius and Gashmius, Elam Haba and Elam Hazeh, and we have to create the proper relationship between the two. That's called Teres Achsidis. Chassidus is a continuation of the revelation of Pnimiyas HaTorah that begins from Rashbi. Maybe you heard the Rebbe said the word about, it says in Sfarim, that Bereish Gli, that when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, Bereish Gli, the Targum says, B'yad Rama, that they went out with a high hand, which means with pride. The Targum is Bereish Gli. So Bereish is Rosh Tevis, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. It's also Rosh Tevis of Rabbi Yitzchak ben Shloime, that's the Arizal. It's also Rabbi Yisrael ben Sara, the Baal Shem Tov. And the Rebbe said, somebody said to me, and I won't object to it because it fits so well, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak ben Shalom Deber, or ben Shterna Sara. So, Yom Simchasi Shel Rashbi, Pnimiyas HaTorah, Teres Baal Shem Tov. We're in a place that's named for the Baal Shem Tov. It's all one kav, it's all one timeline through history of working out this conflict that existed since Yankov and Esav. How do we create in ourselves and in the world, also in the world, the proper and healthy balance between Ruchnius and Gashmius, the proper relationship between Ruchnius and Gashmius? One attitude says it's the Ruchnius, one attitude says it's the Gashmius, and Torah says yes, Chedesh HaShlishi. It's both. Obviously, you can't be a magusham, a hedonist, to live only for, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. You can't just be as malikzich in Gashmias, in Taivas, Elam Hazeh. Okay, Mandach Shmei, who even thinks of this? But conversely, you can't be a spiritual escapist. You can't be running off of the Mechat Malochim, Giloyim, and you call that Yiddishkeit. No, Yiddishkeit is what Yankov fought Esav for. He says, give me that Elam Hazeh. I can't let you take the Elam Hazeh. I need the Elam Hazeh. Adarabah, if anything, if you're going to be involved in Elam Hazeh, it's got to be for me, even if you don't know it's for me. And if you're not doing it for me, if you're not doing it for the sake of Torah, well, then that's when a Yid has to get involved in Gashmias.
You can't have too much fun and entertainment. You can't go to too many ball games, too many amusement parks, like too many shows or whatever. That's too much. Gosh, that you're overdoing it or whatever.
It has nothing to do with the amusement parks and the ball games. That's it.
What's too much?
No.
What's too
It
much?
has nothing to do with amusement parks and ball games because you're making it about the what. It's not about the not about the what. It's about the how. It's not about the what. It's about the how. See.
You have a little bit of it.
No. It's not. It's never about the what. It's about the how. What is it? 99% of Elam Hazeh is mutter. Very little of it is Gimel Klippas HaTameis. So, 99% of Elam Hazeh, the what is fine. The question is how. How are you going to use it? How are you going to use it? Are you going to look at Kugel and see Torah, or are you going to look at Torah and see Kugel? What's your end game? What's your purpose? Anything mutter can potentially be used the right way, or not, misused and wasted, and can become destructive. It's not the what, it's the how. It's not the hefza, it's the gavra. Sorry to say it, maybe I shouldn't say it on video where everybody can publicize it, but I think in the frum world we have an obsession with the hefza over the gavra. We like to make the problem to be about things. It's not about things, it's about how people use things. If you don't have Yiras Shamayim, we can't trust you with anything. In your own house, you have meat and you have milk. Who knows what you're going to do there when no one's looking? It's not the what, it's the how. So how do we learn the how? How do we learn the appropriate relationship? Okay, like I said, there's different approaches. One is that we're going to make sure that we realize how nasty the Gashmias is. Fat Gashmias, yuck. That's one approach. Another approach is, I'm going to build up how beautiful the Ruchnias is. Abstraction and concepts and ideas and philosophy. That's another approach. And then a third approach is, I'm going to explain to you that both Gashmias and Ruchnias were created for the same purpose. That Hashem Echad created both. Elam Hazeh, Elam Haba, Gashmias, Ruchnias, Guf, Neshama, and it's all for one purpose. And when you use them together for one purpose, then everything's healthy, everything's good, everything's Mashiachdik. When we forget the purpose, then even a kosher what can become a not kosher how. But let's not say it in the negative, let's say it in the positive. Panemius HaTorah reminds us of what the world is here for and what we are here for, and the proper way to have a relationship with the world. And when we remember that, when we have that end game in mind, then everything is fine, everything is good. We don't have to be afraid of Elam Hazeh. If we don't know what the world is here for, then yeah, I guess you do have to be afraid of Elam Hazeh, because you don't even have a fighting chance. You don't even know how to use Gashmias if you would be introduced to it. Everything that the Eibishter gives us in Gashmias is potential Ruchnias. This is what the Pasuk says. Mi ka'amcha Yisrael gei echad ba'aretz. The Alter Rebbe said, gei echad ba'aretz dafke. Where do you see the gei echad? Yidden are a gei echad, a nation of Achdus Hashem. Where do you see our relationship with the unity, the oneness of the Eibishter? Because you know, when sometimes I'll speak to Goyim and I'll ask them, and I just do it to remind myself, there's certain concepts that are still uniquely Jewish. And I'll ask them, you know, is God creator or creation? And they jump so fast to say creator. And I say, then what does it mean? The hero Israel, the Lord is one. The Lord is God, the Lord is one. And they say it means that there's one God. And I tell them, no, that's what it says in the second of the Ten Commandments. You should have no other gods. Here it doesn't say the Lord is one God, that there's one God. It says the Lord is one. Oneness. totality, everythingness. So if you're going to tell me, is God creator or creation, the only answer to that is yes. Yes, that's shlishi. Is the Eibishter ruchnius or gashmius? Yes, atzmus, ruchnius and gashmius. Hashem echad, who made both. So, we have to remember like this. The Eibishter made the Ruchnius, he made the Gashmius. You cannot limit the Eibishter to be more Ruchnius, more Gashmius. It doesn't work. We need both. But in order to have both, to have them in a healthy way, we have to understand how to use them, the relationship between them. Essen fahren davnen, not davnen fahren essen. Essen zu lieb davnen. But really, Yidden are goy echad ba'aretz. Ba'aretz. That in Gashmias you see that a Yid has a shaychus to atzmos, which means the essence of the Eibishter, which transcends physicality and spirituality. Davka in the Yid's relationship ba'aretz with Gashmias. So as the Eibishter get Gashmias, the Yidden take Gashmias and make from Gashmias Ruchnias. You know, the Baal Shem Tov once he saw in a vision who's going to be in his mechitza in Elam Haba. He saw there was a guy, an ish poshet, and he didn't understand his chus, so he wanted to meet the guy. It was arranged, Milmaila, the Baal Shem Tov should meet this fellow. He comes to his house, the guy answers the door. He's a big guy, he's a Baal Basar, he's a big heavy guy. Just, you know, you could imagine like a heavy guy. Okay, just use your imagination. By the way, I was in England a few weeks ago, and some guy asked me a question. I don't even remember. It was so out of left field. Some sort of a question. It was. I said it was not had nothing to do with the drasha. And afterwards, he asked me a question about nutrition. And I said, first of all, I told him I was in England, so I said, first of all, I just want to mention, you know, I'm an American. And he says, well, I can see that. Yeah, okay. So at any rate, there's the big heavy guy answered the door. And so Baal Shem Tov comes in, and the guy sits him down, and he's eating. And he eats, and he can eat. Oh yeah, he's putting it away. And then he finishes eating. And, you know, what do? After you finish lunch, or after you finish breakfast at the bagel shop at 11 a.m., as you talk about where we're going to go for lunch at 1 p.m., right? So he was living the life. So the guy starts talking about what are they going to have for lunch. And then it's lunch, and he's packing it away. And then soon after that, what are we going to have for dinner? And the guy is just eating the whole time. So it's not like, you know, he had like a medical issue why he's so heavy. The guy is just constantly eating. And he was an ish pashut. He couldn't really converse about much else. So all he was talking about was food. You know, it's good when you put the butter on the potatoes and whatever he was talking. That was his conversation. And the Baal Shem Tov is not getting it. What's so high and mighty about this guy that he's going to be with him in Elam Haba? So finally, the Baal Shem Tov asks him, he's like, my hi, what's this all about? What's with the eating? So the guy, again, he was very simple, and he says, my father was a Parish, an ascetic, someone who renounced Elam Hazeh. He had nothing to do with Gashmis. He said, my father slept in the shul on a bench, came home once a week, came home Shabbos. All week long, he'd eat a crust of bread, lukewarm water, that was it. Barely ate. And he just sat and he learned. One night, he says, I was a kid, and the Cossacks were drunk and lawless, and they came into town, and they were looking to murder somebody just for sport. And all the Jews ran home, and they locked up the doors, and they were hiding. He says the only one they could find was my father, because he was sitting there in the base medrash and he was learning. He was totally above everything that was happening around him. He was just sitting and learning. So they walked in. He was easy pickings. They just grabbed him. They pulled him out of the base medrash. They tied him up in the middle of the town. They set fire to him. And he was so skinny. He was so skinny that when they lit fire to him, within seconds, his entire body was reduced to ash. So this big fat guy looks at the Baal Shem Tov and he says, when the Goyim come for me, I'm going to burn good and long. Now, this goes in the category of don't try this at home. Because you're going to be like Rome in the Gemara in Redefining we mentioned earlier. You're going to say, God, all that I ate, it was only for Mesiras Nefesh in case the Cossacks come and burn me. And the Abish is going to say, don't fool me, it's a bunch of baloney, you did it for your own gratification. But for this guy, it was real. For this guy, it was real. He was eating the Mesiras Nefesh, Al Kiddush Hashem. That every calorie he consumed and that he turned into flesh, to him, that was just storehousing potential flames of Kiddush Hashem. So in his mind, it wasn't Gashmias, it was potential Ruchnias. He was storing up fuel for the flame. And that's, the truth is, that's the proper relationship with Gashmias.
Yom HaKippurim and Purim.
What?
There's Yom HaKippurim and Purim.
There's Yom HaKippurim and Purim. That's right. And Purim is higher than Kippurim.
Yeah, one day you focus on the soul and Hashem, and one day you focus on the growth of right.
But it's not the focus on one or the other. It's not, do we focus on the... But today, are we focusing on the body or are we focusing on the soul? And the Jewish answer is always yes. Is it A or is it B? And the Jewish answer is always C. Chedesh HaShlishi, the Inyan of Matan Torah, the Kosov HaShlishi. So is it Ruchnias or Gashmias? Elam Hazeh, Elam Haba, Guf, Neshama. It's the whole package. But with Pnimius HaTorah, which gives us the healthy outlook on it, yeah?
It seems like, I mean, I remember, I get what you're saying here, Ruchnias, Gashmias, soul and body. What about, like, in a very basic way, even within the story you just told, the idea of justice, like, just very simple, like the issues that we have with Esav, you know, in the story you just told, and in the world around us today, and in the last 100 years, the idea of just plain simple justice, like, and that's really the issue here regarding Esav and Yaakov, to stop the enormous injustice and arrogant spirit, which causes a lot of horrific things to occur. What about that?
I hear you. And that's why Torah is helpful to focus us and not let us get distracted. Because I hear the question, but if you look at the perspective that Torah gives us, that goes back to the very beginning, Yankov and Esav, it sets up the paradigm for us. That this is not about justice and injustice. This is not about why bad things happen to good people. This is not about law and order. This is about the struggle between physical and spiritual. That's what it comes down to. Everything else is a red herring, is a distraction. When there will be the proper relationship between physical and spiritual, then there will also be justice. Then there will also be security and safety and health and everything else that's good. In other words, you can't look at it from a secular point of view. A secular point of view says, what are the ills of society, and let's tackle them. A Jewish point of view is that the only real solution for the ills of this world is Mashiach. And what is Mashiach? Mashiach is the ultimate harmonization of Gashmias and Ruchnias. That's why Mashiach is something that happens in Elam Hazeh. And it happens through the actions that we do in Elam Hazeh. It's not heaven, it's earth. But it's holier than heaven, happening on earth. So every dysfunction that exists in the world is a symptom. The underlying core problem is always the imbalance or the inappropriate relationship between Gashmias and Ruchnias. That's how it's been since the very beginning. Panemius HaTorah comes and A, makes us not forget that that's the problem, keeps us focused on what the real problem is, and B, gives us a means to the solution. That the solution is harmonizing the Gashmias and the Ruchnias. That you can't have one extreme or the other extreme. You know, I won't say where it is, because Flatbush is a big area, so you'll have no idea who I'm talking about. But I was talking to a bunch of kids who are not religious as of now. These are the kids who you call yeshiva dropouts. These are kids who hit rock bottom, real rock bottom. They were out on the streets, they were on drugs, and now, thank God, they're getting sober. They're not from yet, but each person, you know, they have their own path, their own process, and we hope. I mean, that was kind of why I was there talking with them, was to give them an opportunity to have. I mean, to just basically call it giving them a fighting chance to actually have some positive associations with Yiddishkeit. That was basically my job. So I was talking with these chavre. They're not frum. They're not Shemesh Shabbos, okay? And to put it mildly. And I was learning with them. And we came to, I don't remember how it came up, but we came to something where I mentioned Tchias HaMeisim. Now, Tchias HaMeisim was one of the Yud Gimel Ikrim, okay? Basic Judaism. They were aware of the concept, but I presented it to them in a way that kind of confused them. Because what I said to them is that when Tchias HaMeisim occurs, then all the neshamas that are in Gan Eden right now are going to leave Gan Eden. They're going to make a U-turn. They've been making aliyas and neshama, and they're going to make a U-turn. They're going to come back down. Nishmas Moshe Rabbeinu olav shalom. Every Zayin Adar has another aliyas and neshama for 3,300 years. He's in the highest levels of Gan Eden now. When Tchias HaMeisim is going to happen, Nishmas Moshe Rabbeinu is going to make a U-turn and come back into a Guf Gashmi in Elam Hazeh. So I said to them, I was trying to explain, I was trying to make the point that ultimately it's not about Gan Eden. That's sort of a temporary in-between thing. That's where to put neshamas to give them reward in the interim while we're perfecting this world. But the ultimate thing is Elam Hazeh, is Mashiach. So I was bringing that point out, and I said, think about it. How do you know that Elam Hazeh, Mashiach, is the ultimate point? That these neshamas from the highest levels are going to leave the highest levels, and they're going to come down here. I thought that was a very clear, simple point. And these kids who are not frum, who claim not to believe in God, they look at me and they say, and I'll clean up the language a little bit, they said, those neshamas are going to be so upset. And I was floored. Because in their mind, those neshamas in Tchias HaMeisim are going to be so upset. Because what are they thinking? What were they taught to think? That the whole purpose, the whole end game, it's all up there. It's all Elam Haba. It's all Elam and Neshamas, Gan Eden. Gan Eden Atachten, Gan Eden Elyeh, but it's all Ruchnias. And they're not frum, but that one idea, that one concept never left them. To the extent when you say to them, the neshamas are going to leave the highest levels of Gan Eden and come back in a body through Tchias HaMeisim, and they're like, oh, those neshamas are going to be so upset. Well, why are you bothering the neshamas? You're taking them out of Ruchnias, you're putting them in Gashmias, that's so terrible. It's a funny perspective, isn't it? It's a funny way of looking at life. So they think that Mashiach is going to be a disruption for the schar that neshamas are enjoying. That's a funny way of looking at Yiddishkeit. That's getting all the ruchnius and forgetting the gashmius. The point is, the Eibishter had a taiva. Why did he have this taiva? Like the Alter Rebbe said, "Af a taiva fragt man mishkin kashes." That's what makes it a taiva. If it were a svara sichlis, if it were an intelligent idea, you could say to someone, "Well, why do you think that way?" And if they can't explain it to you, then you can say, "Well, your idea makes no sense," because that's fair fighting. If somebody says, "I have an idea," well, explain it to me. I can't explain it. Then maybe your idea is wrong, or maybe you don't understand what you think what you think the idea is, because an idea has to be intelligible. It has to make sense, and if it doesn't make sense, it's not a very good idea. But if somebody says, "I have a taiva," what's your taiva? I want to paint all the walls orange. Well, why? Explain that. I can't explain it. Then you don't really want to paint the. No, Hadarabba. The more that I can't explain it, the more of a taiva it really is. So the Eibishter had a taiva. Nisavel yeslei dira b'tachteinem. Why? A taiva frekt nish kin kasha. But this is the Eibishter's taiva. It has something to do, to my understanding, with the chiddush of that paradox we were talking about before. That is it gashmius? Is it ruchnius? Yes. Is it neshama or is it guf? Yes. So something to do with the chiddush of that ultimate paradox, that the finite will be the ultimate revelation of the infinite, right? That the neshama ultimately will be most revealed in a guf, and that not only will the neshama be most revealed in a guf, but when Mashiach comes, the neshama is going to be sustained by the guf instead of the guf being sustained by the neshama. This world, Elam Hazeh, is going to be holier than Elam Haba. Okay, crazy stuff. We can't wrap our minds around it. We don't really need to wrap our minds around it. We just have to know that's what it is that's going to happen, and we have to work to making it happen sooner. But the point is, again, since the beginning, our struggle is about getting this together, this harmonization of body and soul. You can't have one without the other. Pnimiyas HaTorah comes along. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai comes along. And all of those in each dor who brought us to another level of Pnimiyas HaTorah, they come along and they keep us focused on this one thing. Is it Gashmias or is it Ruchnias? Yes. Is it Guf or Neshama? Yes. And they teach us how to use the Gashmias in harmony with the Ruchnias. They teach us it's not the what, it's the how. And they teach us how. They teach us the right perspective. So basically, what does it come down to? You want to save the world? You want to cure all the ills of society? Then what do we have to do? It's very clear what we have to do. We have to teach everybody Chassidus. No? We have to teach Pnimiyas HaTorah in order that we can finally resolve this conflict and show that it's no conflict at all, that it's this beautiful paradox that the Eibishter has a taiva for. And that part of the Eibishter's taiva is not just that it should happen in this physical world, but it should be brought about by actions from this physical world. So it's not about Malachim who wanted to be Makabel Torah, and the Eibishter told him that the Eibishter told Moshe Rabbeinu, "You go argue with the Malachim," and then Moshe Rabbeinu told him, "Klum Yetzer Hara yesh b'neichem." You guys even have a Yetzer Hara, which should have been an argument. Fakert, there should have been an argument for the sake of the Malachim, but to the contrary, the Eibishter wants neshamas and bodies with a Yetzer Hara, with distractions and with problems. That's what the Eibishter wants. He wants that harmonization, the reconciliation. We got to keep focused on that. Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted in any other stuff. That's always the problem. That's the core issue. That's always the problem, and that's always the solution. Whatever it is that's going on, how can I make sure that my Gashmias is in line, in harmony with my Ruchnias? I don't have to be afraid of Elam Hazeh. I don't have to run away from Gashmias. I just have to make sure that all the Gashmias the Eibishter benches me with is being used for the proper reason. And the Eibishter should take bench us with plenty of Gashmias. And with the right perspective, to use it in all the right ways. Chai. No, maybe somebody started nigging.
This idea that everything is called Olam Haba, the Ikar, it comes from the Torah. We have to think about this. I know the Hasidus explain it differently, but the average Yitzhak guy, Picava says, Olam Haba cross the Olam Haba, which means prepare yourself for Olam Haba.
It's true.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's not that Hasidus comes with the Chiddush. Some of the Gashmis is important because otherwise, if you take the classical Mechanic for
Very nice.
take the classical Mechanic. The emphasis is always on Olam Gashmis is like a steer. Jesus comes and says, no, wait a second. Steer b'tachtonim. Which is fine. But if you don't like Hasidus, it's not that you by yourself came to the wrong conclusion. The Torah presented this idea. It's more important than that.
It's a Hava meaning in Torah, but it's not the Maskana.
It's not a Maskana, but if you don't like Hasidus, you're missing out. You're missing out.
100%. That's the challenge. Oh, my best friend. Come here. Don't knock me over because this chair is mamish. Baruch Hashem, good to see you. How long have you been here? How long have you been here? The reason for the simcha of Lag Baimer, in addition to Yom Simchasi Shel Rashbi, is that Yemei Asfira are Tzas Avelis for Talmidei Rabbi Akiva, and that the Magefa from which they were dying stopped Lag Baimer. So the famous question is, Rabbi Akiva, how is it shaykh that Rabbi Akiva, as great as he was, that he had Talmidim who were behaving in such a way that whatever they were doing was worthy of such a harsh consequence? The answer the Gemara gives for what they were doing doesn't make the question go away, it makes the question bigger. Because the answer, what were they doing that was so terrible? Like Nagu Kovid Bet Zebazeh, that they weren't honoring each other. This makes the question bigger. Because Rabbi Akiva, not only was Rabbi Akiva like Moshe Rabbeinu, B'deirai, Rabbi Akiva was the one, what was his teaching? That you have to recha kamecha. It's a klal gadol b'Torah. So Rabbi Akiva's whole approach to Torah was, what's Torah? Avos Yisrael. And then from his Talmidim should be that they had such a problem with the lack of Avos Yisrael, such a problem with the lack of Avos Yisrael, that it came to such a disaster. Unless you want to answer that maybe they were stam, they were just guys who were fans of Rabbi Akiva. They didn't really get it. They never really got his Torah. They just liked to hang around Rabbi Akiva. They called themselves Rabbi Akiva followers. The Gemara calls them Talmidei Rabbi Akiva. They were Talmidim. They were Talmidim. So how do we explain the Talmidim from a Rebbe who taught Avos Yisrael end up seemingly not having Avos Yisrael? So the answer is like this. Like no Kovid Zebazeh has nothing to do with the lack of Avos Yisrael. It's not a lack of Ava. That's a misdiagnosis. You look at, you know what the problem? They just need more love. Right? All we need is love. Right? Do you know how much society is still suffering from some of the ideas that were pushed in the 60s and taken as normal. I'm talking about the permissiveness and the breaking of norms, and this idea all you need is love. Love is beautiful, but all you need is love. First of all, anytime anybody says all you need is blank, you already should have, you get nervous. By the way, you should never believe a categorical statement. That was an intellectual joke. I'm sorry, I shouldn't make it. It was ironic. You should never believe a categorical statement is a categorical statement. At any rate, okay, was that hilarious? All right. It makes me laugh. Okay. So, they didn't have a lack of love. It wasn't a lack of love. They loved each other so much they couldn't let each other live. What do you call somebody? What's the technical term for somebody who loves people so much that they can't let them live? Mother. Jewish mother, that's right. That's the technical term for it. By the way, there's such a thing called Gentile jokes. These are jokes that Jewish people tell about Gentiles. So I'm going to tell you a joke about a Gentile, okay? I know I'm on video, it's okay, don't worry. A Gentile calls his mother and says, "Hi, Ma, I know we were going to get together tonight for dinner, but something came up and I can't make it." And the Gentile's mother says, "Okay." You get it? What? She just said okay. So those crazy Gentiles. Imagine the Jewish son calls the Jewish mother. Come on. Some people call it a codependent. That's more of a technical term. But I realized that Jewish mother and codependent are really synonymous. All the Jewish mother jokes and all the codependent jokes, you could really, I doubled my comedic repertoire in one moment when I realized you could substitute them for each other. Like, there's a Jewish mother joke. How many Jewish mothers does it take to change a light bulb? Don't worry about me, I'll sit in the dark. Okay, you could do that as a codependent joke also. Or a codependent joke, what is the last thing that a codependent sees before he dies? Somebody else's life flashes before his eyes. So you could do that as a Jewish mother joke, and ain't lo davar sof. So at any rate, there's something called an addict, and there's something called a codependent. But maybe a better way of describing it, codependent, is someone who's addicted to an addict. And what's worse, an addict or someone addicted to an addict? An addict has a certain limit of how long his excuses will work on other people and even how long it'll work on himself. Because eventually, he has to realize that what he's doing isn't good. He runs out of excuses. And he hits bottom. When you're addicted to an addict, which means you put your life on hold to solve somebody else's problems, you will never run out of excuses for why you need to continue doing that, because it's the most noble thing in the world. In fact, you would feel terrible not to do it. I don't have a right to do it. How can I have my own life while somebody I love is suffering and making bad choices? No, I will not live a life. I will not be happy. I will not be sane until this person that I love is making better choices. And you can't talk them out of it. You can't explain to them the insanity of it. Don't you realize that you're just as irrationally addicted to fixing this person's life as they're irrationally addicted to their drug of choice? No, they don't realize that, because they have the best excuse in the world. What they're doing is holy and noble and right and kind and righteous. That's why the codependents never hit rock bottom. I shouldn't say never, but I told you before, never believe a categorical statement. But very rarely, I get calls all the time from people. They're like, "I need you to get my son, my husband, my wife, my daughter, my sister, my brother to stop." Well, first of all, I can't get anybody to stop. But second of all, they're not even calling me. You're calling me. And I know I always ask them. Let me ask you a question. Let's say that your loved one is going to continue behaving the way they're behaving, out of control. If there were a way that you could achieve serenity and sanity and get your life back, even if that other person never changes, would you be interested in hearing about that? Now, I'm going to ask you a question. I never took a scientific poll. These numbers are just anecdotal, meaning my personal experience. But what percentage of people do you think answer yes, and what percentage of people do you think answer no to that question? You remember the question?
No.
90% say no. That's right. 90% say no. I have no desire for that. I want you to fix this person. That's the only thing I want you to fix them. Yeah, but what if you could get some sanity back? What if you could get off the roller coaster? Your life is a roller coaster. It's madness. What if you could get off the roller coaster even if your loved one is not going to start making better choices? No. No, not interested. And in fact, they get really indignant about it. They're offended by the suggestion. What?
Because they feel they're in charge.
Well, of course they feel they're in charge. They feel they're in control. That's the illusion of control, is that I can fix other people's problems. It's a playing God. You know, I heard from somebody once. It was a mother of a kid who was out on the streets for many years, and she said, "I had to realize God has no grandchildren." I think because I'm Hashem's child, and I have a child, so my child is the child of Hashem, so therefore my child is Hashem's grandchild. No, that's not how it works. Every one of us has a direct connection to Hashem. Sometimes you got to just make space and let that person have their connection. You can't be the intermediary, you know, to try to be their connection. You got to give them that room. So, what does it mean? Rabbi Akiva had Talmidim who couldn't let each other live. Rabbi Akiva taught, "V'yahavtu re'echa kamecha" is a klal gadol b'Torah. You know what else Rabbi Akiva taught? If I had to say two main themes of Rabbi Akiva's life and his teachings and what he stood for and what he lived, I'd say that, Avas Yisrael. And another main theme, Mesiras Nefesh. Right? Rabbi Akiva was always saying, Kol Yoman Yitztara, I was always pained. When am I going to have the opportunity? And then Taki had the opportunity, and he was Meiser Nefesh, and his neshama came out as he said Shema Yisrael. He was Meiser Nefesh, he died al Kiddush Hashem. So combine these two things, Avas Yisrael and Mesiras Nefesh. Now in Rabbi Akiva, to say that Rabbi Akiva was holy is an understatement. You understand what Rabbi Akiva was? The Asara Aruge Malchus were substitutes for the brothers who kidnapped Jesus. That's what the Caesar said to them. That you're standing in for Yosef's brothers. How many brothers were involved in selling Yosef? So Yosef was one of the 12, that's 11. Binyamin wasn't there, that's 10. Reuven went away, that's 9. Remember, they were short. Who did they use for their tzenter? The Mitzaref the Eibishter Alein, Kadosh Baruch Hu Alein was the 10th. So why did 10 martyrs? Asara Haruge Malchus. Who was the stand-in for Kadosh Baruch Hu Alein? Was the Rabbi Akiva. So we're talking Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva's level, Mesiras Nefesh and Avas Yisrael, was healthy. Unfortunately, in his Talmidim, not that they didn't learn his lesson, they did learn it, and they couldn't handle it. And they combined love and martyrdom, and they became love martyrs. A love martyr means I love you so much that I will die trying to fix your life for you. I will not stop. I will fix your life, or I will die trying. And it's not an exaggeration. Die trying. It's a terminal condition. which causes insanity and loss of health, and eventually robs a person of their life. There's a joke I heard from the recovery world about the addict and the alcoholic and the codependent. And they were on an island somewhere of savages, and they were sentenced to death. And the way that they killed them over there was a guillotine, like French Revolution style. So the first one up was the addict. They put his head on the chopping block, and the executioner lets go of the rope, and this big heavy blade comes whizzing down the track, and it jams just a millimeter above the addict's head. It jams in the track. And the blade is just hanging there over his head, doesn't cut him. So the king says, "This is the law of our land. We consider this an act of God. You are free to go. Live and be well." Next. So the alcoholic gets up. He puts his head down in the guillotine. The executioner lets go of the rope. This big heavy blade comes whizzing down the track. And it jams. It jams again in the same spot, a millimeter above the alcoholic's neck. And the king says, "We consider this is the law of our land. We consider this an act of God. You are free to go, live, and be well." Next. The next one up is the codependent. Codependent gets up on the platform, looks at the guillotine, taps the executioner on the shoulder and says, "I think I know how to fix that." Those are famous last words, right? I know what your problem is. I've been thinking a lot about you, and I know what your problem is. So, Avas Yisrael, Ad Mesiras Nefesh, when it gets out of hand, when it doesn't have an anchor, when it's not the Mesiras Nefesh of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was, from the Daled Nichnas Ala Pardes, right? The Braisa and Chagiga. It says, Dafka Rabbi Akiva was Yotze B'Shalom. Why? Because he understood that it's not for the sake of we were talking about earlier, before, the beginning of the Farbrengen. It's not about Elam Eselyenim, it's not about Giluyim, it's not about spiritual high, it's about Dira B'Tachtenim. So Rabbi Akiva knew that. He knew how to do it right, and he could always bring it back down to the shuv, to the return. But the other Talmidim, they couldn't handle it, and what they became were people who. Okay, let me explain where the dysfunction is. The Gemara says, "Ein de'esem shel b'nei adam shaves." Just like no two human beings have the same face, no two people have the same mind. That's a reality. Even identical twins do not have exactly the same face. There are billions of people on planet Earth. There are no two people with the exact same face. It's amazing if you think about how many combinations of features there are to allow for that, but there aren't no two people with the same face. So Chazal say, same thing with minds. They're just like no two people look exactly the same. No two people have the exact same mind. So how many different ways of being a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva were there? As many Talmidim as there were, because each one has his own mind. So each one has his own way. And of course, each one thinks his way is the best way. Let me ask you a question. Is there any problem with that? No, there's no problem with that. That's not the problem. The problem isn't when I know my way is right. Not only is it not a problem to say I know my way is right, it's not even a problem to say I know my way is right, not just for me, but it's right for you. I know what you have to do. That's still not a problem. When does it become a problem? I know what's right for you, and I'm going to make sure that that's what you do. That's when it becomes a problem. It's not a problem to say, you know what, you're making a bunch of bad choices, and I know what the right choices are, and if you wanted my advice, I can tell you how to turn your life around. There's no problem with that. The problem is when it's unsolicited, and the person doesn't want to hear it, and you're going to force it on them. There's another, and this is a sikha from Chelik Chav Beis and the Kutei Sichos, but there's another sikha from Chelik Yud, Parshas V'Yigash, talks about Yosef and Binyamin. Why did they cry on each other's necks? And the neck is the Beis Hamikdash. Basically, the question is, was weint men auf jenem's Chorben? Like if you have your own korban, so cry for that. So Rebbe explains there that tears are when you can't. Crying has no tayelis. Crying is not productive. So why ever cry? We cry dafka when there's nothing productive to be done. So for your own problem, right? The Medrash says on the pasuk that he said him offer kumi, right? It's a pasuk. It's in Shio, but it's also in the Lechadedi. The Medrash says it's a mashal. You know, he said it. Shake yourself. Offer, shake off the dust. So the Medrash says a mashal about a rooster that falls in the ashes. It says 1,000 people with 1,000 combs can never make him clean again. But if he gives himself one good shake, then immediately becomes clean. So in the Sichel over there, it talks about Yosef and Binyamin. So Yosef's crying on the Chorban Beis HaMikdash, and Binyamin's crying on the Chorban of Mishkan Shiloi, of Yanim's Chorban, and the Chorban that happens in the other one's land. Because for your own Chorban, don't cry, fix it. But for the other guy's Chorban, you can't fix it, so you cry. You can't fix it, so you cry. You say Kapitel Tehillim. You give tzedakah. You bring their name to the oil. But you can't fix it. So there's no problem saying, I know the right way. Not only do I know the right way for me, I know the right way for you. That's fine. The problem is, and now I'm going to force you to live the right way. You shouldn't do it, and the truth is you can't do it. You're not going to be successful doing it. But if you're a codependent, you're going to die trying.
What do you do in a case where the person is a danger to himself and or
That's
others?
what we're talking about.
That's the big problem.
If a person's a danger to themselves, I mean, you can intervene so they can't immediately hurt themselves. You can interrupt an immediate danger, but you can't change their lifestyle. I mean, you can get them safe for a day, for a week, for however long. You know, I've told people before, you know, you're going to send the guy to rehab, you're going to spend $40,000, he doesn't want to go, he's going to relapse the day he gets out, but he probably won't die in rehab, he'll probably die on the street. So, if you want to buy 4 weeks of him not dying, that's what you're buying. But don't think you're buying him recovering, because he's not going to, because he doesn't want to yet. But there's this obsession. I know what's right for you, and I'm going to make sure that you do it. You know, in the days before the revolution in Russia, when the revolution was cooking up, they used to send, the Bolsheviks used to send intellectuals, like guys who were like talkers, and they would go give sermons about communism. And they would try to, indoctrinate the masses about the tenets of communism. So one time, this is, by the way, a whole genre of Jewish jokes about the communist indoctrinator who comes to a small town and then a little old Jewish man in the back of the crowd makes trouble. So there's a series of these jokes, but I'm only going to tell you one of them, the one that's germane to the point. So the communist indoctrinator comes to the town, and he's talking all big about the revolution, and after the revolution, everything's going to be beautiful, and the revolution. So this old Jewish guy, he raises his hand, he says, "Comrade, I just want to ask one question. Will there be strawberries and cream after the revolution?" And the indoctrinator says, "Yes, of course. Everyone's going to eat strawberries and cream after the revolution." And the Yidel says, "And what if I don't like strawberries and cream?" And the indoctrinator says, "After the revolution, you better like strawberries and cream." Is I know what's right for you, and I'm going to die forcing it on you. And that's what happened. They did. And they died.
But how's that answer why they got the Megafah for that? They get the Megafah.
For some, they have a Megafah. For others, it happens in more natural ways. But it always ends in it doesn't end pretty. You know what the Kotzker said is, "Ich bin ich, weil du bist du, und du bist du, weil ich bin nicht dich, und du bist nicht du." Why isn't it enough that I know the right way to live? That should be enough for me. Why do I need to make sure that you live that way too? When, Bechira Chavshis is free choice. Free choice is my behaviors. The fact that Eibishter gave me free choice doesn't mean I get to choose your behaviors. I think we forget that sometimes. So, why isn't it enough? I know the right way for me to live. Maybe even I think that's the right way for everyone to live. But the only person who I can actually choose that way of life for is myself. Why is that not enough? Ich bin ich, weil ich bin ich. This is the way I live. No, it's not enough because I need to get you to do it too. Ich bin ich, weil du bist du. In other words, I don't have a life. I don't have a life. My life's on hold because you're not living the way I know that you ought to live. So I'm not me. Also, as much as I'm martyring myself for your sake, you're not really you. I'm not relating to you. I'm using you because I'm trying to control you. So I don't even know you while I'm martyring myself to fix your life.
Would it have been different that they had psychologists at the time of Rabbi Akiva?
What do you say?
Would it have been different?
If they would have psychologists at the time,
Yeah.
would it be different? No. Why would psychology help it?
Because they would have recognized that they're erred and that they were being...
You think so?
No, I'm asking.
No, I don't think so.
I'm asking you as a professional.
Who's the biggest codependent is the psychologist. Who's the biggest codependent? Who's the one who fixes everybody? That's my identity, is I fix everybody. This is not psychology, my friend.
I heard that they were golden from Sodom. The Talmidim from Rabbi Akiva that didn't get covered for each other.
Yeah. Okay, so in Gilgulim, and it's different levels. But in Aveda, in the Hera B'Poel that we can take from it, this is a lesson definitely in how not to relate to other people. Now, there has to be a positive model. There has to be a right way of doing it. So we know the wrong way. What's the right way?
Yes.
After 24,000 Talmidim died, Rabbi Akiva started over again. And he had a new group of Talmidim, and there were 5 main Talmidim. And from the 5, the top one, in fact, he said to this Talmud that it's enough that Hashem and I know your greatness because nobody else relates to your greatness. And who was that Talmud? It was Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Imagine that. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai was the one who took Avas Yisrael and Mesiras Nefesh and did it right. He was able to do it right. When he came out of the Maida, not the first time, the second time, and he said to his son, B'ni, dai lo'i lamani v'yato. So Rabbi Shimon was Teirosim and Nosei. He spent 13 years in the Maida learning Kol HaTorah. But he didn't expect that from everybody else. He knew that's the right way to live. But he didn't expect it from everybody else. And he told his son, Dai lo'i lamani v'yato. It's okay. We can be this way. We don't have to make everybody else be this way. Live and let live. And then what did he do? Okay, so that's the Sumeirah. There's also Shais Taub. Sumeirah is the easier part. Like the first thing in not being a codependent is to learn the trick. Don't just do something, sit there. You ever heard that before? Don't just do something, sit there. Because the instincts, the fight or flight is always, don't just sit there, do something, right? Oh, we got to go do something. We got to go save so-and-so from himself. No, relax. You don't have to respond. You don't have to react. The Eibishter's running the world. The Eibishter's got it. Hey, if it's something you have to choose for yourself at this moment, a behavior that you have to choose, okay, so don't just sit there, do something. If you have to choose a behavior for yourself, okay, so do. But somebody else's behavior, he's not doing what he's supposed to do, or he's doing what he's not supposed to do. Like I told you, Bechira Chavshis is free choice to choose your own ma'asim. You don't choose other people's ma'asim. So the first thing is, don't just do something, sit there. That's the sumera. Just leave people alone. It's okay. Leave people alone. Okay. But now there has to be a ascetic type. There has to be a right way of doing it. What's the right way of doing it?
Caringness, maybe? Like caring, maybe?
Well, caring's an emotion, but we want to translate into Maisa B'Peh. So look in the story. The whole story, the whole Maisa of Rabbi Shimon spells it out for us. What this is, the Alter Rebbe says that Roiv Soidei Satira are gnuzim in the Agarata of Gemara. That these are not just stories; these are Soidei Satira. So what's the next thing that happens? So Rabbi Shimon tells his son, "Dai lo leman yivata." It's okay, but then he says, since a miracle happened for me, and he learned it from Yankov Avinu, he learned a lesson from Yankov Avinu. He says, since a miracle happened to me, I want to show my gratitude to Hashem. Azil, I'm going to go. What does he say? Askin milsa. Let me go fix something. There's a big diuk there. Let me go fix something. He didn't say, let me go fix somebody. He said, let me go fix something. Big difference. Let's talk about it like this. You get up in the morning and you daven Shachris. And you finish davening and you take off your tefillin. Will you touch your tefillin again until tomorrow? No. Well, the truth is, mitzad arvus, if there are Jews anywhere in your immediate vicinity who are not putting on tefillin, you have a chiyuv to touch your tefillin again until Shkia. It's your problem that there are Jews who either don't know what tefillin are, or know what it is but don't think about it daily, or think about it but aren't motivated to actually go through with it and put it on. You have to take care of that. That's a problem. You have to fix that situation. But you don't fix the person. You don't fix the person. First of all, people don't need your fixing. People are perfect the way they are. The situation is an unfortunate situation. If you know about there are Jewish children in your neighborhood are not getting a kosher chinuch, that's a problem. So no, be part of the solution. If you know, I'll give you something that's maybe a little bit less challenging. Although I really encourage everybody, bring your tefillin to work, bring your tefillin to the grocery store. Shem zich nisht, put tefillin on with people. But I'll give you another assignment. In addition, you know there are singles in your neighborhood who have to go find a Shabbos invitation every single week, and who are struggling with profound loneliness every single Shabbos. You know that exists within.
Every neighborhood.
So if you know the situation exists, be part of the solution. Or, if you're embarrassed to talk to anyone outside of your own house, okay, so even your own kids, your own bnei bayis, you know that there's a, lamashal, just to make up an example, that there's a 13-year-old boy who comes home from yeshiva and he doesn't have somebody to sit there and learn with him. Maybe that's your own son, and the reason he doesn't have anyone to sit and learn with him is because you're not doing it. Okay, that's a problem. So be part of the solution. But you're not fixing people. You're not fixing the person. You're fixing the situation. So it's not like Rabbi Shimon heard about the situation. He said, "Oh, you mean there's a case of Safek Tomeh, and this Kehanim. Okay, I know what we have to do. We have to put up a sign to tell Kehanim, you should be careful that there's Safek Tomeh here, right?" He didn't fix people. He fixed a situation. When you help a Yid, and the greatest thing you can do for Hashem, for your father, is to be Mekar of one of his children. When you help a Yid to do a mitzvah, you're not fixing the Yid. First of all, Neshama is perfect, and Neshama doesn't need fixing. So you're not fixing him. But the Neshama is in an unfortunate situation. He's in a situation where he doesn't know about his inheritance, or he knows about it, but he doesn't think about it. Or, I don't know if you've ever met such people, they know about their inheritance, they even think about it. I'm talking about their spiritual inheritance, Merosh Shakilas Yankiv, the Torah. But they had negative experiences while they were being exposed to it, and so they have a conflicted relationship with Yiddishkeit, and it's hard for them to do what they need to do. And if you have the schus to be part of fixing that situation, not the person, but the situation, by what? How do you fix a situation and not a person? How do you make sure that it's, because is it just a word game? It's just semantics? Oh, I'm calling it fixing a situation, and I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm not telling you I know what's good for you. I'm just making opportunities available. Excuse me, sir, did you put on tefillin? Here they are. So if you hadn't thought about tefillin, I'm reminding you of it. Maybe you thought about it, but you weren't motivated to actually put them on. I'm putting them in front of your face. They're here. If you don't know how to put them on, I'll put them on you. My job is to improve the situation. That means by combating apathy, combating ignorance, by overcoming anything that prevents Yidden from doing what they really need to do. So I'm combating the situation. If there's a misunderstanding about Yiddishkeit, so I can try to change the perception. And if I'm a person who's good at explaining things, I can try to change the way people perceive something. That's called fixing a situation. But I don't go to a person and say, here's what you have to do. And I don't, for a minute, think that they owe me anything. Side, they don't owe me anything to listen to me when I tell them. So I don't tell. You don't tell people what to do. Side, they don't owe me to listen to me. Side, they don't owe me a thanks if they did listen to me and it worked out. They don't owe you a thanks. You owe them a thanks. Megalgal and schus ali de zakai. So this guy came closer to Hashem, and you had the schus to create a situation that made it easier for him to do that. You should thank him for the opportunity. One of the healthiest things that I ever saw, healthiest interactions, human interactions that I ever perceived in my entire life. I was speaking at a Chabad house, in Orei Sode, like not a frum area at all. I would say, well, it was obvious to me so it was a Shabbaton type situation, and then there was a talk at the Kiddush, and then I finished the talk, and then people started leaving, and then it was obvious to me who was Shomer Shabbos and who wasn't, because most people were running because they had stuff to do, unfortunately. And then there was like a small group of maybe 3 or 4 balabatim who were lingering. And they clearly had nowhere to go. And not because they didn't have busy lives, but because you could tell, they had started to keep Shabbos. These were the chaver who walked back to the rabbi's house and hung out there all afternoon. So, doesn't matter where it was. Point is, some suburban town in middle America. And so the Elam had left. People were trickling out. It was getting smaller. There was a few chaver left. And one guy turns to the shliach, and I didn't hear the whole conversation leading up to it, but I heard this one line. He says to him, "I want to thank you for changing my life." And the shliach looked like he'd been slapped. He was like, and I could tell he looked uncomfortable. And I was waiting to hear, if he was going to explain. He looked uncomfortable. And he says, No. I didn't change your life. You changed your life. But thank you for letting me be there as part of your support while you were changing your life. I was so blown away by that. That was so healthy. Because that's exactly what it is that the shliach is supposed to do. He's sent there to make it as easy as possible and as pleasant as possible and as convenient as possible for every yid to do as many mitzvahs as possible. But whether or not the yid is going to choose, that's only the yid's own choice and his own credit. It's only his credit and it's only his choice. So we don't fix people. Even when we know what's right for people. Even I know what you should do. Doesn't matter. Great, I know. We fix situations. Situation is that most Jews in America don't put on tefillin every day. That's a problem, a problematic situation. So that's a situation you might want to be part of improving. Like I said before, if you're not ready to, bring your tefillin to Manhattan and put on tefillin with the lawyer who's you're meeting with in the boardroom in Manhattan, okay, I understand that it might be a little bit. So look around the neighborhood, and unfortunately, plenty of ex-yeshiva boys who don't put on tefillin. You could help them. The point is, the Eibishter will present the situations to you. The Eibishter knows how to run the world. Hashem has skills. Hashgacha Pratis will bring you opportunities to fix situations. But when you fix a situation, do it humbly, do it respectfully. Another thing to remember, if you help somebody do a mitzvah, they don't owe you any follow-up. They don't owe you to become frum. There was a few years ago, I remember it was going around, the Chevra were talking about that some actress from Hollywood that I never heard of, obviously, was on some talk show that I also never heard of. But people were talking about it because by the shluchim, their balabatim were very nespoil, that she was on a talk show and she spoke about tefillin. I don't think she said the word tefillin, but I think the word she used, and everyone was talking about it, was, she must have said tefillin, because the whole thing is, she said, my 15-year-old son came home from the mall and he had a drive-by bar mitzvah. So I remember the shluchim were talking a few years ago whether or not that was like, is that bechovedik, a drive-by bar mitzvah, and it kind of sounds cheap. What did she say? The way it was described to me is, she said, my 15-year-old son came home from the mall and he said, Ma, I just had my drive-by bar mitzvah. And I said, what does that mean? She said, some guy came over to me with a beard and a hat, and he said, did you ever put on tefillin? I didn't know what it was, and he wrapped the black boxes on me, and he said, have you ever done this before? No, I never did it. Then today is your bar mitzvah. So Chaver were talking about whether or not this was like something we want to promote, because it was in, people were talking about it. It was something that was, people were conscious of. And somebody asked me, I said, actually, I wouldn't come up with the phrase drive by bar mitzvah, but now that you say it, I really like it actually. Because what do I like about it? It's like when a website wants your email address and then they spam you, and you're like, you're just using me. You just want to you're just using my email to market to me, right? So, a drive-by Bar Mitzvah means I'm going to get in there. Okay, basically, there's a problem. The problem is there's a bunch of Jewish men who haven't put on tefillin today. I'm going to go down to the mall with my tefillin. I'm going to try to put a dent in that problem. How much of a dent can I make? You know, I don't know. How many guys I can get? 5 guys, 10 guys, however many I get, okay? What's my relationship to those people? Nothing. I don't have to have a relationship to them. I'm not fixing them. I'm dealing with a situation. So it's a drive-by Bar Mitzvah. You don't have to follow up with me. You don't owe me any report. You don't have to tell me if it changed your life or not. I didn't do it to change your life. I didn't do it to make you frum. Maybe it will. Maybe you'll do tshuva. That's between you and Hashem. The Eibishter is ma'ir neshamas. Maybe you will do tshuva. But that's not why I did it. I did it because there's a problem. The problem is that there's something called arvus, and I'm mechuyev to put on tefillin 600,000 times a day, or however many Yidden exist. 600,000 neshamas b'chlal and different offshoots. But I'm mechuyev to put on tefillin every day. As many times, it's my chiyuv, mitzat arvus, to put on tefillin as many times as there are Jewish arms belonging to men above age 13. So I'm putting a dent in the problem by going down there. I'm not following up with you. I don't know if you're going to put on tefillin tomorrow. I don't know if you're going to become frum. That's irrelevant to me. You ever heard of the approach of outreach, where they do triage and they figure out who has the best likelihood to become frum? That's an attempt to fix people. I'm going to figure out who is the best use of my time and efforts, right? Because I want to be able to affect somebody. I want to be able to change them. So I'm going to figure out who's the best kli, who's most likely to be, you know, influenced by me. And I'm going to go for that guy. That's called trying to change people. And that is controlling. And it is manipulative. And it is dishonoring. It's disrespectful. Rather, what do? We say, you're perfect the way you are. You're a neshama. A neshama shenasat bi tehi. You're beautiful. But there's a problem. The problem is your neshama and the goof where it is right now didn't put on tefillin. I have the tefillin. Let me fix this solution. If I see you again tomorrow, I'll offer you again tefillin again tomorrow. If I see somebody else, I'll offer him tefillin. You know, I saw a bumper sticker once that said, "Oh God, protect me from your followers." Religious people can be very dangerous. Right? Because when you have God to co-sign your agenda, now you can do anything. It's not me. No. Who says? No, it's not me. God says. Okay. Let Hashem be Hashem. We're not Hashem. We do Hashem's work, not His job. Hashem does His job, which is to run the world and to take care of His children. We do His work, which is Ma'asim Tovim, acts of goodness and kindness, try to make the world a better place. But we don't control people. People don't belong to us. Even our own children don't belong to us. We're shepherds. We're stewards. Even our own children don't belong to us. Your child does not owe you any nachas. And you shouldn't make yourself crazy trying to figure out what buttons you have to push in him to get the nachas. That's not how it works. That's not your relationship with your child. You have a mitzvah, you have a chiyuv, a chayiv kodesh, of vishinantim levanecha. You have to be mechanech your kid. That's it. Your kid doesn't have a chiyuv to listen to you. You don't even have a chiyuv to get him to listen to you. You have a chiyuv to present him with a full chinuch. You don't fix people, you fix situations. You make sure that everyone has the best shot, that everyone has the best opportunity. That if somebody wants to do the right thing, and deep down all neshamas want to do the right thing, that the opportunity should be easy and convenient. And if you're part of that, that's a big schus. Megalvin schus al yidei zakai. What could be a greater schus than to help neshamas have an easier time doing what they got to do? But we do it for the situation. And ultimately, what's the end game? That we're going to fix this. We're going to really fix the situation. The ultimate problematic situation, we were speaking about it earlier. Don't get distracted. Remember I said don't get distracted by all the ills of society. Those are symptoms. The core is, I mean, if you want to use Rabbi Shimon's words, Shchinta b'golosa. That's the real core problem. That's a situation that needs to be fixed. We got to fix that situation. We don't fix people, we fix situations. The situation that needs to be fixed, the core problematic issue, ongoing problematic issue, is Shchinta b'golosa. That the Eibishter, Kaviyachol, is in Golus with Yidden. We have to fix that. How do we fix that? We have a roadmap for that. Hafatzas Yadis, Hafatzas Hamayonis, putting on tefillin with people, learning chassidus with people. Not to fix them, but to fix the situation, to fix the world. Lasakin Elam, Mamachas Shin Daled Yud. And when we finally fix the situation, it's a pretty good feeling to know that you were part of the solution. Because sooner or later it's going to be fixed. The question is, did we play a part? Did we play a role? Anyways, we all know the right thing. We should just do it. Chaim. 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 Regarding the Zayar that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai wrote, Eliyahu Novi says in the Tikkun Zayar that he says to Rabbi Shimon, or of Rabbi Shimon, that Chibur Dilach, this sefer of yours, that with this sefer uses an interesting term, a unique term for a relationship to a sefer. Yisparnosun minei. It's Lashon parnosa. Sustenance. What does it mean to get sustenance from a sefer? Befrat, a sefer of Penimius HaTorah, which is Soides HaTorah, is the highest Ruchnius, and we speak about it in terms of such Gashmius, Moshin Parnosa, like money, like bread, like food that you eat. So there was one time, the people in Chelm. People in Chelm were very foolish, but that wasn't the problem. There's no sin being foolish. They thought they were smart. And there's many stories about how smart they thought they were. But one of the stories is there was a shamish in the shul in Chelm, and he went to the big city of Varsha, to Warsaw. And he walks in the big shul, and the shamish of the big shul sees a gast in Stadt, and he asks him, "Von wann kommt der Yid?" And he said, "From Chelm." Oh, he says, he's going to have some fun with this guy. So he says to him, "I heard the people in Chelm are smart. Is that true?" He says, "Oh, I don't want to brag, but yes, it's true." Okay, so here's the question. Can I ask you a riddle? Yes, ask me a riddle. All right, the riddle is, I am my father's son, but I am not my brother. Who am I? So the Shamash of Chelm thinks, wow, that is deep. You're your father's son, but you're not your brother. You said you're not your brother, but you're your father's son. Father's son, but not brother. Not your brother, but you're not your brother. You know what? I must be tired from the trip. I don't know. What's the answer? So the Shamash from Warsaw says, he laughs and he says, come on. I'm my father's son, but I'm not my brother. I'm me. I am myself. The Shamash of Chelm says, the Shamash of Warsaw. That is a good one. And he runs back to Chelm. And he runs into the shul. And he finds the wise men of Chelm sitting on the Mizrach Vant. And he says to them, I have a riddle for the big city of Warsaw. They say, let us hear it. He says, the riddle is like this. I am my father's son, but I am not my brother. Who am I? So the wise men from Chelm, they say, oh, wow, that's deep. Well, father's son, not your brother. You're not your brother. You're sure you're not your brother, huh? But you're your father's son. And yet you're not your brother, but you're your father's son. We don't know. We can't figure it out. Shamash of Chelm says, you don't know? No, we don't know. He says, come on, I'm the Shamash from Warsaw. Okay, they say analyzing a joke is like dissecting the frog. You understand the frog better, but it's dead. So I'm going to kill the joke by dissecting it, and I'm going to ask you, what's the joke here? Why is it funny? Don't just say because the Shamash of Chelm was dumb. What was dumb about it? What did he do wrong? What's he supposed to say?
He doesn't know who he is.
He doesn't know who he is? That's too deep for me. On a simple level, if I told you that same riddle and you had to go tell it to someone else, you go home and you tell your wife that riddle, how do you say the punchline? I'm me. So why didn't he say it that way? Because he heard the Shamash of Warsaw say, I'm me. Oh, okay, you're you. So when he repeated it and he wanted to say it right, he said, he understood the punchline to the joke is the Shamash of Warsaw. You think that's so far-fetched? You're making it way too deep. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. You get up and you talk to a bunch of people, let's say a group of Jews, about a concept, about an inyan in Torah. Torah meloshen hera. And obviously the reason you're talking about it is because it's pertinent, it's relevant, I'm talking to you, I'm talking about you. And in the end, I'm saying even if they hear it, what do they come away with? Want to hear a good word? Want to hear a good word? That's what they come away with. That's why also, by the way, they say that a Baal Darshan can never have Yiras Shamayim. Because anytime he hears something that would affect him, he says, oh, that's a good one, I have to remember it. Including that. It's not a vort. It's not a quote. It's not something I heard I'm going to repeat to you. Torah is compared to Mazain, right? David HaMelech says, Perek Hey of Tanya talks about this, that mitzvahs are like levushim for the neshama, and that Torah is like mazain for the neshama. And why is it compared to mazain? Because it becomes part of your flesh and blood. What does it mean that Torah becomes part of your flesh and blood? I was at a Shabbaton, and whatever, they had a really funny, it was very difficult to keep up with the schedule, because they had me speaking in all sorts of different times, during davening and the meal, and so whatever, I had to figure, whatever, okay, the bottom line of the story is that I was finishing davening Shachris, and the Olam from the Shabbaton came in to daven Mincha. So I was finished. I was finished. Okay, so I'm standing in the back with a talis on, and they're davening Mincha. Okay, so I stood in the back with my talis, and I daven. Look, I was the only guy with a talis because it's Mincha. And then they gave me an aliyah. Now I have to go up, and it looks kind of funny, the only guy wearing a talis. So I took off the talis, and I walk up to the Sefer Torah, but now I'm not wearing a hat. I didn't have my hat there. I didn't even have it in the shul. It was like a conference room where the shul was. My hat was in my room, in my hotel room. So I'm looking around, and this olam there, this was like 90% satmer. And so they didn't have hats like this. Of Shabbos trug me a streimel, yeah. So somebody gave me a streimel, so I put on the streimel, and actually I put on the streimel for the aliyah, and then somebody says to me, "You better hope this doesn't go viral." And I said, "That's why I did it on Shabbos." He says, "You never know." So I'm telling you a story. I wore a streimel on Shabbos. Not this Shabbos, a while ago. Now imagine if I would come home from the Shabbaton and I would say to my wife, "Do you know what I did on Shabbos? Take a look at me and tell me what I did." She could never tell me in a million years by looking at me that I had worn a streimel. Why? Because that's how levushim work. I did a mitzvah a minute ago. Ha'isik b'mitzvah patim in a mitzvah. Then you finish the mitzvah, you got to be ha'isik again. So if I say to you, "Oh, do you know I was busy with a mitzvah a minute ago?" Well, no, because that was a minute ago. That's why mitzvahs are like levushim. If you're doing the mitzvah, I see it. If you're wearing the clothes, I see the clothes on you. A minute later, I don't see it on you. You don't have it anymore. Now imagine if I come back from the same Shabbaton. I told you it was like 90% of Satmar Olam. And I'll tell you one thing about the Hungarians is they know how to eat. I'm going to tell you something. Russian Chassidim do not know cuisine. They don't. They think they do. Like 5 different ways of making potatoes. It's the Hungarians know how to eat. It's a serious business. But so can you imagine if I would come back from this Shabbaton and I would say to my wife, "By the way, I want to tell you something. I ate very, very well at this Shabbaton." And my wife would look at me and say, "I know." Well, how would you know? What do you mean? Zetmendach, right? That's the difference between clothing and food. Clothing is not nikkar except when you're wearing it. Food, it's visible for a long time. Because mazin becomes your flesh and blood. It's the same thing with Torah. Torah is also a mitzvah. So if you learn Torah for 5 minutes, let's keep it realistic, 5 minutes. You learn Torah for 5 minutes. So if during those 5 minutes you are oisik in the mitzvah of limud Torah, that's a mitzvah. And that's the lavush of Torah. But then there's also the mazain of Torah. And the mazain of Torah is, after those 5 minutes are over, the 5 minutes of Torah that you consumed, that you ate, you digested, you metabolized during those 5 minutes become part of your brain. And now it's not just what you know, it's how you look at everything else that you will ever come to know. if you chew your food and swallow it and metabolize it. The inyan of Yisparnusim Mineh, that Torah, and not just Torah, but Pnimius HaTorah should be like a lashon that we use, like Zanim Farnes, that the Eibishter gives parnos, the Eibishter gives food, Pashat Begashmiz, he gives us food. The inyan is that when I hear a concept in Torah, I should never say, you want to hear a word? You want to hear something cool that I heard? Because that's I'm the Shamash of Warsaw. If you chew it and you digest it and you let it absorb into your flesh and blood and become who you are, now I'm not telling you a vort. I'm telling you my reality. This is how I see life. This is my reality. That's what it means. The Rabbi Shimon wrote a sefer not to inspire you, not to impress you, not to tantalize you with these high levels, but to sustain you, like you eat a piece of food and becomes part of your flesh and blood. It changes your brain, changes how you think. And if you can't open up a zayir and do it directly from a zayir, which I can't do it that way either, that's what Torah Baal Shem Tov is for. It allows us to ingest and digest and metabolize Pnimius HaTorah, Yisparnus and Minei, that it should become part of your flesh and blood. That it's not just cool ideas that you can talk about, that this is the way you see life. Became part of your brain, part of your thinking. That's what's unique about Torah. As opposed to in Chassidus Chabad especially, we don't talk a lot about mofsim, about miracles. Because miracles are transcendent. You don't understand how they work, and they go over our head, literally. It's a makif. So it doesn't really change your way of thinking. It's impressive, but it's, right? Like they say, in Baal Nes, Makaris Nisai, it's really impressive while it's happening, but after it's over, it doesn't change you. It doesn't change the way you think. But Torah gets in there, rewires your brain. It changes how you think. Pnimius HaTorah changes the way you view reality. So it changes your whole life. If you learn it the way that you're meant to learn it. These are not cool ideas. It's talking to you about you. You make it applicable. How do you make it applicable? The Alter Rebbe says, early in Tanya, in Perek Gimel, even someone who's a chacham v'novain, right? He has a lot of chachma and he has a lot of bina. He learned a lot of chassidus, and he could explain the chassidus he learned. But if he's not going to focus on it with das, litkaya b'machshavtei, to focus, to cogitate intensely, then midas won't come from it, because chachma and bina are tati and mami, but adam yodes chave, that they should actually come together and be moiled children, which are midas, that's das. So what does that mean? That means you hear something that can change your life, but it didn't change your life yet. It can change your life. If you want it to change your life, now you know what you got to do. You close the sefer, go take a walk around the block, and say it back to yourself in your own words. Until you do that, you're not chewing and digesting your food, and it's not going to change you. You can be a great Judaica studies professor. You can quote a lot of chassidus. It won't change your life. By the way, did Ben leave? Ben Telushkin was here. I'll tell you a story that his father told me. I don't think this is printed anywhere. So Ben's father told me that Herbert Weiner, who was 9.5 Mystics. Weiner. He was a Reform rabbi, and then eventually, at the end of his career, he retired. He became frum. Anyways, he wrote a book, a beautiful book, 9.5 Mystics. The chapter about the Rebbe is incredible. When he was in Hebrew University in Jerusalem, he was in the Kabbalah class of Gershon Shalom. Now, I don't know if you know in Flatbush who is Gershon Shalom, but if you go on Amazon, you look for Kabbalah Svarim, you're going to have 90% is going to be Gershon Shalom V'Talmidov. And basically, he was a German Jew, a real Yekir, from biblical criticism. And well, there's no Kedusha Satira. It was just... now, the guy was Baki, Osbos, and Zayah. Baki. But he didn't believe in it. Wasn't from. So anyways, he was giving his class in Kabbalah, and a chassid came into class. Who was it? You probably heard of Radatz Chaim, right? They called him Reb Hershel Chernogover. And B'Seif Yomov, he went to Eretz Yisrael. Last few years of his life, I think it was mamish only 2-3 years. He had been, I think he goes all the way back to the times of the Tzemach Tzedek. I think, but when in his older days, he moved to Eretz Yisrael, and this is in the Chofs, I believe. Maybe even Yudz. So it's probably in the 50s. So he had a son, Avram Yehuda Chaim. Avram Yehuda Chaim comes into the Kabbalah studies class taught by Professor Gershon Shalom at Hebrew University, and he starts doing what you would expect a chassid to do in Gershon Shalom's Kabbalah studies class. He starts making trouble. So he says, what's the difference between a chassid and a Kabbalah studies professor? He says, what's the difference between an accountant and a balabas? He says, the accountant, his whole day he's immersed in numbers. And every one of those numbers represents money, a dollar, a cent. And he knows exactly how much to the penny came in and went out. And he knows the whole day he's following those numbers. He knows exactly what money came in, what money went out. But at the end of the day, he closes his accounting books and he goes home and he doesn't have the money. It's not his money. Now the balabos, the guy who owns the company, who hired the accountant, he looks at the books once a week, once a month, whenever. He knows le'erech how much is coming in, how much is going. He doesn't know to the penny. He does not know all those numbers. But it's his money. He says the Kabbalah professor, he knows every letter of Zohar. But he goes home in Nebuch, it's not his. It's not his treasure, unfortunately. Because he doesn't look at it that way. The chassid, what does a chassid know from Zohar? You know Kigavna. Whatever's a maskal of a maimer. Yeah, you can get started a little bit. Reisha Manusa de Malka Golif Galifu Tahiri Eloy. That's about it. That's about as far as you can get. Zohar, but it's my book. It belongs to me. That everything that's stated in that sefer is Yisparnasun Minei. That's what I live off of. That's how I look at life. That's my outlook at the world. Is Pnimiyas HaTorah from the Zohar and B'Shimon v'Talmidov, and in each dar the daily Yisrael who brought Pnimiyas HaTorah closer and closer into our minds and allowed us to nourish ourselves and to embrace it and make it part of our worldview. So that's what it means. Rabbi Shimon wrote a lofty book of lofty ideas, but it's not supposed to have an effect on you like Nisim have an effect, where it's very impressive while it's happening, but after it's over, you're the same guy that you were before it happened. It's supposed to affect you the way that Torah affects you. That's why it's a chelik of Torah. Torah affects you that when you learn something, you cannot think the same way ever again. It's not what you know, it's how you look at everything else that you will ever know because of that thing that you now know. The Gemara even talks about it, about whether or not a Talmud Chochem can be mevater on the cover of Torah. There's a Gemara in Kiddushin. So the Talmud Chochem might say, I can't be moichel my covet because it's not me, it's cover of Torah. So the Gemara says, no, you could be. You know why? Because it says that it's a pasuk in the beginning of Tehillim. B'teiras Hashem chaftzei v'yega ba yemam v'layla. In Teiras Hashem, He desires, and He meditates in it day and night. So the Gemara says like this: Teiras Hashem chaftzei. Calls man, He wants it. That chaftzei, He wants it. It's Teiras Hashem. It belongs to Hashem. But once he puts in the sweat equity and he toils in it and he meditates in it, Teirasei goes on the person. It becomes the person's Torah. It's a kinyan of Torah. So now he can be moichel the cover of Torah because he was kind of the Torah. What does it mean you're kind of the Torah? Befrat pinimiyas Torah. When it changes the way you look at things. Don't tell me how much Pnimiyas HaTorah you can quote. Tell me how much the ideas of Pnimiyas HaTorah change the way that you look at things. And I will tell you that Pnimiyas HaTorah changes the way that we look at everything. It changes the way we look at Hashem. It changes the way we look at Torah, and it changes the way we look at Yisrael, at Yidden, the big three. Everything else is nichlal in this. Yisrael Reis v'Kudsha B'richu. Pnimiyas HaTorah changes the way we look at those things. There used to be a magazine called Hakriya V'Kedusha that Lubavitch put out in the early years in America. It came out during the war years, during World War II. And the Rebbe was very involved. In fact, the Rebbe wrote many articles under a pen name. But there's one article there in Hakriya V'Kedusha. It says like this: if you want to understand what is Pnimiyas HaTorah, then let's look at the first 3 psukim of Torah and how different it is when you understand it al pi chassidus. And from just those first 3 psukim, you'll see how different it is al pi chassidus. Then you'll be able to extrapolate how much different everything else becomes. So he says like this: Bereishis bara elikim eis hashemayim ve'es haaretz v'haaretz ha'is hasayu v'avayu v'chayshech al pnei ha'tahayim v'ruach elikim marchefes al pnei hamayim v'yemer elikim hi'or v'hi'or. First 3 psukim. Okay. So he says like this: Bereishis bara elikim. In the beginning, Hashem created 2 ways that a person can live: Eis hashamayim, a spiritual life, ve'eis haaretz, a materialistic life. It's talking about a person, talking about your life. And the person has to choose what kind of life he wants to have. So continue and read. V'haaretz, he chooses a materialistic life, obviously. That's the easiest. And consequently, ha'isasayu v'avayo, post and vost, he chose a materialistic life, and he gets the consequences of that decision. It's meaningless. It's empty. So he says, you know what, this isn't working. Let me get out of here. V'chayshech, but it's dark. You can't get out. And where is he now? Al pnei tahaim, dread, deep in the depths. And what's with his nefesh alakis, v'ruach alakim, marachefes al pnei hamayim, just floating out over the water. He made a bad choice, and now he's stuck. He doesn't know how to get out of it. And we only have one more pasuk left to end the story in with a nice Hollywood ending. The last pasuk, Vayemer Elokim Hiyar Vayhiyar. So he says like this: Vayemer Nerzok, der Mensch, person says, Elokim. Vayemer Elokim is not how Elokim said. Elokim Akazok. Vayemer Elokim, the person says, Elokim, God. Yihi oil. And immediately there is light for him, vayihi oil, and for the world around him. So it says in Hakriya V'Kedusha, from those first 3 psukim, you could extrapolate how different all of Torah will be when you learn it in the light of Pnimiyas HaTorah. That's the thought. That you take something like Bereishis Ba'alakim Es Shemayim V'Sa'aretz, which Al Pi Chakira, why did the Eibishter introduce himself? And not Shabarasi Es Shemayim V'Sa'aretz. Right? It talks about in Kuzari and other Rishonim. Why does the Eibishter not? Because it's impersonal. I created the world. Who was around when I created the world? No one was around there. So I make it more personal. I say, I took you out of Mitzrayim. Oh, that I can relate to. But Chassidus comes and takes something like Bereishis Bara Elokim Es Shemayim V'Sa'aretz, something that's seemingly so removed. This is a story about you. This is a story about you. When the Alter Rebbe was in prison, I mean, there's a famous story of Ayaka. What's the important part of the story? The important part of the story is why the Alter Rebbe was happy that this minister accepted the story. You remember the details of the story? The Alter Rebbe was in prison, and this minister came to him, and he was a religious Christian, and he knew the Bible. And he asked him, why did the Eibishter ask Adam Rishon Ayeka, where are you? When he surely knew where he was. And the Alter Rebbe said, it's not to scare him. And the minister, the guy, said, what Rashi says, I also know. Oh, okay. And the minister said, I want to hear what the Rebbe has to say. So what did the Alter Rebbe say? This is the crucial part of the story. What did the Alter Rebbe say next? Anyone remember? What did he say next?
Are you in life?
No. He did not say that. This is the most important part of the story. It's funny how the most important part always gets forgotten. The Alter Rebbe asked him, if you want to hear what I say, then first I want to ask you a question. Sounding familiar now? Do you believe that Torah is relevant in all places and at all times? And the minister said, yes, I do believe that. And the Alter Rebbe was happy because he knew that he was in prison and on trial as a kitrug against Torah Baal Shem Tov, and that one of the main teachings of Torah Baal Shem Tov is that Torah is relevant in all places at all times. After the guy told him, yes, I believe Torah is relevant at all times and in all places, then the Alter Rebbe says, fine, I'll tell you what I say. Ayaka is talking to the person, to the individual. Where are you holding in your life? It's a personal thing. Ayaka is not just something historically that happened on day 6 of creation in the afternoon when Adam messed up and the Eibishter was punishing him. Ayaka is something in your life. Sparnas and Minei means that Pnimius HaTorah is talking about you. It's talking about your life. But you have to digest it and metabolize it and let it soak in. You learn a Shir Chassidus, that's beautiful. That's Charisha. Maybe even Zriya, but it's not Ktsira. You have to take a walk around the block. I say take a walk around the block because I think it's more relatable. If I would tell you, after you finish a Shir Chassidus, close the Sefer and put your talis over your head and think for 20 minutes before davening. Then you get all intimidated. No, I can't do it. That's too... Okay, so then don't do that. After you finish your Shir Chassidus, close the Sefer and go take a walk around the block and say back to yourself what you learned in your own words. Until it becomes the way you see things. Until it becomes your brain. Until you're koine that piece of Torah. Chassidus makes it exceptionally easy for us to do this. You still have to put in the work, but Chassidus makes it so easy to take the highest concepts and make them personal. Somebody asked me recently, a guy was getting interested in Kabbalah. He wanted to maybe learn Kabbalah. And whatever, I don't want to dissuade him, but I recommended to him that Chassidus might actually be what he's looking for. And so he asked me, what's the difference between Kabbalah and Chassidus? So I told him that Kabbalah and Chassidus is like mathematics and engineering. To be an engineer, you have to know mathematics. But a mathematician doesn't necessarily know how to build a bridge. Kabbalah is the language, is the oisius. It's like the mathematics. Chassidus is the engineering. It's how to build the bridge. There's an old saying, I don't know if it's so nice to say, but they say that Kabbalah came and turned Hashem into a man. The anthropomorphisms, basically, the spheres, the Adam Elyon. And Chassidus came and turned the person into Hashem. Showed you that you're a chelik elikami mal. Mamish means in a guf. This is exciting stuff, and it's not that it's talking about in Elam Elyonim. It's talking about here, in this world, in the same world where you eat kugel. It's that's the mind-blowing part of it. So, bottom line, you learn Chassidus, and you look at life differently, and you look at business differently, and you look at marriage differently, and you look at your children differently, and you look at emotions differently, anger and annoyance and anxiety, all this stuff that we all deal with, which I gotta tell you, I'm so sick of people asking me what psychological books that I learned these things from, and I'm telling you, it's such a chil Hashem. Why do frum people read my column and ask me, where did I get these psychological insights from? It's a chil Hashem. That's like you come to my house and you eat my wife's cooking, you say, wow, this is treif, right? No, it's a compliment because it's so good, it's treif, right? That's what you're saying. Oh, but that was so practical and so relevant that had to be from secular books. Oh, okay, now I know what you think of Torah. I mean, I'm not going to pretend I never heard about these concepts. Obviously, I heard these concepts. I didn't study them officially, but, you know, whatever. I heard the words, I heard the terms, and sometimes I use the oisius of it, because the same way, you know, you're explaining a concept of chassidus, you use a mushal. A mushal, you're using the oisius of it to express a concept, but it's just oisius, just a way of expressing the concept. The concept is from chassidus. All of these practical things that people assume come from secular sources, they don't. I promise you, they don't come from secular sources. They couldn't come from secular sources. The secular world doesn't have this stuff. It comes from Torah. Just, you have to sit and think for a minute how to translate it from theoretical to practical, but it's all there. It's all right there. Okay, so if you open a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, it's spelled out for you. It tells you how to get up in the morning, how to wash your hands. Okay, it's spelled out for you. You open up a Maimer, and okay, a little bit more work is required, but not that much more work. It's not like you're opening up a Zayir and trying to get from Zayir to, you know, how to deal with life. You're opening up a Maimer. The Maimer did 99% of the work for you. Now just sit and think about it for a minute. But no, you don't want to think about it. You just want to learn it and feel good that you learned it, and then that's it. Or be impressed by it, or have a vort to repeat, or... I mean, whatever. I know myself. I know what it is to misuse chassidus, to use it either because it's interesting, or because it's a distraction, or because it gives you something interesting to tell other people. I understand, but that's not what it's for. It's supposed to change you, and it's supposed to guide you in practical, everyday, down-to-earth ways. So if you learn chassidus and it's not affecting your marriage, it's not affecting your relationship with your kids, not affecting the way you deal with annoying coworkers, not affecting the way that you stress out or don't stress out about money, then you're not learning chassidus properly. The Rebbe speaks about this in Kuntras in Yonah Teres Chassidus, you know, about the Eibishter says that Barasi Yetzahara, I created a Yetzahara, but I made Torah Tavlin. I made Torah as a literally spice, but it means a remedy, an antidote. So the Rebbe says Torah Tavlin for the Yetzahara. So basically, that's what you're saying about Torah. Torah is how to deal with the Yetzahara. It sounds so demeaning. It sounds, it's just so, you're taking Torah, which was written black fire on white fire 2,000 years before the world was created. And then you're going to say, you know what it's for? It's for how to deal with your disgusting animalistic desires. Wow, really? So that explains there. Not tchilasen b'seifen v'seifen b'tchilasen. That's what it says in the Sefer Yetzirah. Everything's a circle. The ends are wedged in the beginnings are wedged in the end. Torah, of course, it comes from above the worlds. How do you see how lofty Torah is? How low it comes down. That it deals with the lowest nitty-gritty dysfunction of real life. Meaning the 90% of letters I get that aren't published. The ones you see published are the tame ones. The 90% are not published because we have to pretend those issues don't go on in our community. There's real issues, real pain, real dysfunction, conflict. And it's happening all around us. But here's the thing. Torah has guidance for that too. It would be unfortunate if we would use Torah when it comes to a Shaila and Basa B'chalav, but not when we're really struggling with a problem in life that's getting to us. That's not Yisparnas and Mineh. That's You leave Torah up there on a high shelf, and you admire it, and you take it down as a museum piece once in a while to look at it, and you put it back and keep it safe. I'll put it this way: if the Torah that I'm learning and I'm thinking about, and then the davening also, davening is important. Davening is when I'm really internalizing the learning. If that isn't addressing whatever it is that is heavy on my heart right now, I'm not doing it right. All of these tools are from Torah, and especially from the highest levels of Torah. The higher you go, the higher you go, the more practical it gets. So you would really, really, really want to deal with your low issues, the issues of nefesh ba'amis, the issues of yetzer hara. So the lower the problem, the higher the solution. It just requires translating it, internalizing it, absorbing it. You have mashpiyim, I mean, so that's what they're there for. You learn a mimer and you can't figure out how it's relevant. You go to the mashpiyah and you say, how is this talking about me? I know it's talking about me. Explain it to me. Help me make this relevant. Unfortunately, rabbis get the opposite reputation of being irrelevant, talking over people's heads. You know the story about the guy who was in a hot air balloon? And the wind blew him off course and he was lost. And he flew out over some field and he saw a guy down below and he screams, "Hey, you down there! I'm lost! Where am I?" And the guy down on the ground says, "You're in a hot air balloon." The guy says, "Yeah, thank you, yeah. But where? Where in the world?" He says, 29 degrees east, 12 degrees north, longitude. He says, "Okay, yeah, but where in relation to like a location on the ground?" He says, "About 30 meters off the ground." The guy in the hot air balloon says, "Are you a rabbi?" The guy on the ground says, "Yes, I am. How did you know?" The guy in the hot air balloon says, "From the minute I met you, everything you've told me has been 100% true and totally irrelevant." So, you say a good word, and, it's interesting, and maybe it's even inspiring, but it's irrelevant. I don't feel like it's talking about me. That's terrible. It's not how it's supposed to be. If you're learning properly, there should come that point in every mimer, in every sikha, where it just hits you how personal this is. How this is talking about exactly what it is that you're going through right now. And it's amazing because, there's so many layers. You learn one mimer and you see something in it one time, and then a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, you learn it another time, and what you're going through then, you find it there, and it's a totally different thing, but you just keep finding personal relevance, because it's all there. It's all there. It's also why we need the Farbrengen, because sometimes the Farbrengen gives an opportunity to just translate the concepts into everyday language. To talk about the ideas the way we really talk. That's why some mashpiyim even, especially certain mashpiyim of note, of certain styles, were known to talk in a way that, frankly, many would consider crass or off color. It was a mashpiyah, Zalman Moshe, and he was known to speak in a way that was turned off a lot of people. They didn't like it. They thought it was very grub. And he would explain, trying to get through to the Nefesh Abamis. I got to speak words the Nefesh Abamis understands. The Farbrengen's not for the Nefesh Elokis. The Farbrengen's for the Nefesh Abamis. You got to translate it to him in his language. I was speaking one time, and I'll tell you a cute story. I gave a speech somewhere. It doesn't matter where. It was somewhere in North America. I'll limit it to that. And afterwards, some guy comes to me, and he says to me, he's like, "Wie die redt ist nicht idle." I was like, "It's not." He says, "You're not talking refined." And I was like, "What? I said, "What did I say? It was not idle." I got scared. I got nervous. Maybe I let something slip. I don't know what I said. So he said, "Bei Eden, zoek min, Eibishter, Bashefer, Kudish Burchi." I'm like, "What did I say?" He said God. I'm like, "Oh no, that's what he was upset about." There was like this grub English, God. Yeah, I should have said Hashem. I should have said Kadosh Baruch Hu. I said God. So I said to the guy, I said, "Listen to me. I want to tell you something. When I get up at 3 in the morning to go to the bathroom, and I walk through the hallway of the house, and my kids had been playing Lego earlier in the day, and they left their Legos there on the floor, and it's 3 in the morning, and I step right on that Lego. You know what I'm talking about? 3 in the morning, you step full force on that Lego. I want to tell you something. I don't scream out Bashefer, Eibishter, Hashem, Kodesh Baruch Hu. I say, "Oh God!" So when I come here to your shul and I say a Dvar Torah, I want to use the same language in teaching Torah that my Nefesh Abamis uses at 3 in the morning when it steps on a Lego. Because if they're two different languages, I'm wasting your time. I'm not here to say Sheina Torahs. I mean, the fact that that's an expression itself is very revealing. Sheina Torahs is an expression. Basically means, yeah, it's very nice. Yeah, tell me more. Beautiful. We're here to get real. And getting real means we talk in the language of Nefesh Abamis. That's the Chiddush. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai wrote a sefer that's the highest of the high, and yet Yisparnasin Mineh. That you eat it, you digest it, you like a piece of kugel. I mean, it's. And if you can't do it from the Zayah, which very few of us today can, Chassidus does it for us. But the point is, Pnimius HaTorah is not lofty. Pnimius HaTorah tfakert, not tchilas b'seifon, b'seifon tchilasan. That the loftiness of Pnimius HaTorah is revealed dafke in the fact that Chassidus, Pnimius HaTorah, deals with our lives and the issues that we're really dealing with and we're struggling with. Not one idea I ever wrote in that column that was insightful came from any other source but from Pnimius HaTorah. And 99% of it from the Rebbe's Torah. But if the Rebbe said you don't have to say B'Shem Emrei, but if I would, then it would be 20 times on every page, so whatever. So that's one of the reasons why I don't do it. There are other reasons as well, because unfortunately, some people need to just hear the message and not know who the messenger is. And so we accommodate those people. It's okay. Hopefully they're not watching this video. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
Big Marty, right?
Ay, ay, ay.